Ellis, who won the by-election in Llandrillo Ward, and she's a member of the Plaid Group, as I'm sure you all know. So welcome. I hope you enjoy the next 6 months or so, and it's good to see you. So this is your first meeting, so let's hope I can behave myself and be okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Llongyfarchiadau.
Fawr.
Cadeirydd, ga I ddod I mewn?
Okay. Okay, thanks very much indeed. Right.
Cadeirydd, Meirig sy'n yma. Ga I ddod I mewn? Holi dwi am y cofnodion y pwyllgor diwetha. I ddod nes ymlaen, copi I ddilyn sydd gyda I. Ydy o wedi cyrraedd? Dwi'n medru cael hyd iddo.
Mae'n ddrwg gen I rhaid mi ymddiheuro oedd gohiriad I wneud ynglyn â'r cofnodion. Doedd ni ddim eisiau cyhoeddi'r cofnodion yn Saesneg yn unig, ond hefo gohirion I wneud efo'r cyfieithu, a ni gorfod cyhoeddi'r cofnodion Saesneg ar dydd Gwener. Di'r cofnodion Gymraeg ddim ar gael ar y funud, a nawn ni wneud yn siŵr fod ni'n anfon nhw allan I bawb cyn gynted a bosib. Rhaid I mi ymddiheuro am hynny.
Diolch Gary, diolch Mr Cadeirydd, ond lle dwi'n cael hyd yn nhw? Alla I'm gweld dim byd I dod drwadd hyd yn oed yn Saesneg.
Wel, mae'r cofnodion yn y pac Saesneg, ond mae Rhodri yn mynd I anfon link I chi rwan I chi gael.
Ardderchog, diolch I ti. Dwi ar y llechen ydw i'n wrth reswm, ddim ar yr un mawr. Dwi'n gweld y lluniau ar y llall.
Iawn, okay.
Are you happy with that now, Meirig?
Diolch o fawr, thank you, Chair.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Right, we'll get cracking. We've got quite a lengthy day, lengthy morning, so we'll start. I'll just let's just go before we start the meeting. Proper to say that the proceedings today, I wish to remind everyone of today's meeting are being filmed. You'll realise that, and subsequent broadcasts via the council internet. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating areas, members of the public are consenting to being filmed and to those images being broadcast on the council's internet site. I should also remind all present that I have the discretion to terminate or suspend the webcasting if, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings, or that continued webcasting might infringe the rights of any individual. So we're ready to go on that. Is everybody happy with that? Right, can we have apologies, please? Are there any apologies?
Hugh Williams.
Thank you.
John Butterfield.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go on to agenda item number. Declaration of interest. Sorry, Gary. So Gary will read out declaration of interest.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be aware of the requirement under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now, or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available online.
Okay, everybody happy with that? It's very clear, so thanks for that, Gary. Right.
Chair, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any declarations, please?
I have a declaration, please, Chair.
Can you say what that is?
Yes, yes. In view of one of the items that's listed for the agenda today, which may be discussed later in the meeting.
Can't hear you.
Yeah.
Did everybody hear me there?
No, Sue, we didn't.
Sorry, I will repeat then. I want to declare an interest as I'm a governor of Prestatyn High School, and I believe there might be an item concerning the school later on in the meeting. Personal interest.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Any others?
Chair, I don't think you can see me, but it's Flynn, Tony Flynn. I'd also like to declare an interest as a governor of Prestatyn High School.
Thank you, Tony.
Mr. Chairman, I also occasionally work in Prestatyn High School, so just wanted to declare that as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any others? Any other interests? No. Okay, thank you very much for that. We now go to agenda item 3, which is urgent matters. We don't have an urgent matter as such, but I understand that Councillor Orwell Roberts wants to present a petition to the council. So would you go ahead with that, please, Councillor Roberts?
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mr Cadeirydd. Diolch am y cyfle. Diolch yn fawr. I'll read it in Welsh and I'll go over it in English. There are 3 strands to this petition. It's regarding the Abergele Road in Rhuddlan. Ers amser, mae gen i'n broblem gyda gyrwyr cerbydau yn anwybyddu cyfyngiad cyflymdra ar hyd ffordd Abergele Rhuddlan. Rydym yn gofyn am gyfyniad o 30 milltir yr awr ar hyd y ffordd yn gyfan gwbl. Rydym yn ddiolchgar i gyngor tref Rhuddlan am brynu dyfais dangos cyflymdra sydd wedi cael ei leoli. Yr un modd, Cyngor Sir Ddinbych am y gwaith o drefnu lleoliadu'r peiriant. Serch hynny, rydym yn gofyn am groesfan i gerddwyr, mae trigolion ac ymwelwyr yn rhoi eu bywyd mewn perygl wrth groesi ar hyn o bryd. Hefyd, mae yna angen dirfawr am fwy o gyrbau ar y pafin i bobl sy'n teithio mewn cardeiriau olwyn. To turn to the English, it has come to our notice that the vehicles are ignoring the speed limit along Abergele Road, Rhuddlan. The 40 miles per hour limit should be changed to 30 miles per hour limit all along the road. We are very grateful to Rhuddlan Town Council for purchasing a speed indicator device, which is in place now. Also, Denbighshire County Council for placing the speed indicator in place. However, we are requesting a pedestrian crossing. That's the second strand. And the third one is for drop curbs, which is really needed for wheelchair users. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi, and I'll pass it on to the highways officers in Ddinbych, this petition that's been filled by residents who live mostly along that road. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll ask Gary to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm to members what we do when we receive a petition, and Councillor Orwell Roberts has been good enough to send me an electronic copy. We'll make sure that the relevant service receives the petition and that a response is submitted to him within 14 days of receipt of the petition.
Okay, thank you very much. The second part of Agenda 3 is a question to be asked by Councillor Glenn Swingler, please.
Good morning, everybody. Just like to ask the lead member, has progress been made over the last 4 very difficult years to prevent and to support those Denbighshire families that are at risk of becoming homeless through no fault of their own? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to turn my video off in case I have a problem. Thank you, Glenn, for your question. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
And thank you for your continuing interest and empathy towards homelessness. As you say in your question, anyone can find themselves homeless through no fault of their own. The simple answer to your question is yes. Emphatically, progress has been made and every effort is made to support families at risk of homelessness. Do I wish we had done a bit more? Well, yes, of course I do. My ultimate ambition, after all, would be to see the end of homelessness here in Denbighshire. Although strategically good progress has been made, some solutions will take a little more time to be delivered fully. The last few years, as we all know, has been a difficult time, particularly for this service. The pandemic has undoubtedly increased the workload and staff vacancies continue to impact on our homelessness service. As I said before, I would have liked to have seen a little more progress, but I am very pleased with what has been achieved so far, and I truly believe we are on the right track. We have a new structure which will focus on prevention, and we've linked closer with housing. We've seen a reduction in the number of families presenting as homeless. This is obviously partly due to the Welsh Government preventing evictions during the pandemic. You know, obviously as this lifts, we may well see more people coming through again. We're in the process of tendering for HSG funding, early intervention contract to prevent homelessness. And this will involve mediation, for example, with landlords, maybe clearing debts, helping with rent arrears, and help with all sorts of other family issues. Over the last 12 months, we have run a pilot project with Civica, which has been successful. And in fact, it's prevented 84 households from becoming homeless. We've also used HSG monies to develop a specialist tenancy support workers team, working across county and the private rented sector to try and avoid people becoming homeless in the first place. The Welsh Government launched a tenancy hardship grant earlier this year to help those in arrears. We have encouraged people to apply for this grant, but unfortunately the take-up has not been overly good on that. We've also worked with housing and RSLs to take advantage of suspension of SARF, which has resulted in 99 households being given permanent tenancies. I have to say, when I read the recent update from the audit, internal audit, which goes to scrutiny, partnership scrutiny on the 16th of December, I was reassured we had progressed well. In fact, I was quite surprised when I got towards the end and noticed that it was still low assurance. And I was perturbed by this. So I spoke to Lisa Hart in internal audit, and she did agree with me that we had made progress, but because certain areas had not been addressed sufficiently, we had to remain with a low assurance. As I said earlier, a full and frank report will go to partnership scrutiny on the 16th of December, and there will be time for as many detailed questions and answers as members may have. But I hope, Glenn, that this brief explanation will suffice for now, and that you will attend partnerships, and any more questions you'll be able to ask there. Anne, who's head of service, and Lloyd, and Nicola, who's Director of Social Services, are here this morning. And if you do want to, I believe you are allowed a supplementary question, so they'll be on hand if we need it. So thank you very much for your question.
Thank you, Bobby. Councillor Swindler, do you want to? You have the opportunity to ask a relevant question.
Yeah. So only very quickly, thank you very much, Councillor Feely, for that comprehensive answer. And once again, I'd like to put on record my support for the homeless prevention team, who do an awesome job. Just the audit report, just very quickly, with the has the reorganisation worked, or is there still more work to do on the reorganisation? And how bad are the staffing levels?
Well, it's early days, but we do think the more, if I can put it more holistic approach to homelessness and preventing it happening in the first place, which required the new structure. I think it is going to work, but it's very early days. I'm not quite sure I don't think Anne will probably be able to answer, but I think we are more or less up to scratch on the staffing now, maybe one vacancy, but we haven't really got into our stride on it yet. So once again, I think we'll have to suggest coming back to track progress and see how it goes. Anne, can you add to that?
Yes, I can. So yeah, so following the consultation, Glenn, we did get everybody in post. Unfortunately, we lost some members of the team because they applied for other posts within the council. So we've actually seen a significant change in the staffing team since the consultation, and for a lot of them that was promotion. So it was good for them, not good for us. So it's taken us a little while to get the team into a stable position, but all the posts that we wanted into what was now a multidisciplinary team are there. So we have a dedicated counsellor, we've got a dedicated mental health practitioner, we've got a dedicated offender manager role, and we're just in the process now. The final role that we're bringing, we've got a social worker in the team, sorry, and the final role we're bringing in is a professional substance misuse stroke mental health person that's coming on secondment from Betsy Cadwallader, who will still have access to all the mainstream provision through Betsy Cadwallader services for substance misuse and mental health, but will be dedicated to the homelessness team. So picking up those individuals that have got maybe lower level needs and medium needs, but also being able to access some of the more services there. So yeah, we've come quite a distance with that. Getting practice bedded in. I think the biggest issue we've got at the moment is obviously being able to move people from emergency accommodation into permanent tenancies, and that's something that we're still struggling with, and I think we're going to struggle with for some time. The housing market over the last 12 months has not helped us at all, because obviously rents have soared, property prices have soared, so we're battling against you know, getting affordable properties. But we've got the corporate approach to that now. We're working so closely with all the rest of the departments, you know, with public planning, public protection, community housing. We've got the senior leadership team subgroup that look at this from a corporate perspective. So working together, we're really moving forward. Maybe not as fast as we would like to, but we know where we're going. And we've recently just received, well, last week we got the Welsh Government's Ending Homeless High Action Plan, which we now need to look at, and we need to develop a rapid rehousing transition plan, which is a 5-year plan as to how we're going to move to the Welsh Government's rapid rehousing model. That means as soon as somebody comes into homelessness, we're virtually offering them a tenancy, and we're putting that support in place right away. So that's quite ambitious. It's going to take us a little while to get there, but I think we know where we're going, and I think, you know, with the support of the whole council, we will get there.
Thank you very much. Can I suggest that to take this forward now, that perhaps any statements that come out can be sent to all the councillors, and Glenn, if you want further information, just communicate with officers. Is that okay? Everybody happy with that?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Okay. So we're going on to agenda item 4, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of October. So we've got agenda item 1, apologies, declaration of interest, 2, 3 urgent matters as agreed by the chair, full minutes. Agenda 5, which is the flood event section, the flood investigation report. We've got agenda item 6, which is the notice of motion. And we've also got agenda item 7, County Council Forward Work Programme. Are there any comments on that, matters arising, before we ask for a proposer and a seconder for those, please?
Bore da, Mr Cadeirydd, eto, dwi wedi codi'n llaw yn electroneg ag yn llaw yn dangos yn y llun.
Okay, do you want to go forward, Mary?
Diolch yn fawr. Eitem 5. Dwi wedi medru darllen yr un Saesneg tra oedd y pwyllgor yn mynd ymlaen. Dwi'n gweld, oedden ni wedi codi llawer o bethau ynglyn â'r afon Elwy, ynglyn â'r ffordd isa Ddinbych ac yn y blaen, ac i fyny am Wigfair a Pont Newydd. Dwi'n gweld bod yna gyfeiriad yn un rhan ar tudalen 8, ond dydy o ddim wedi gofnodi mod i wedi godio, ac hefyd mae'n ymddangos bod yna ddim llawer o och am yn ardal i sy'n cael ei foddi o hyd efo'r afon yn ôl beth fedwyd gan yr awdurdod dŵr, yr afonydd, sydd yn drist iawn. Hefyd mae'n nodyn am ffarm Glan Llyn, yn yng ward i mai, ward Trefnant, ac ymhlwy cymeriadog. Mi roeddwn ni wedi sgwennu at yr adran yn y sir, ond ges i ddim ateb pen nes i wneud ymoliadau hefo nhw. O'n i'n synnu at hynny braidd, ond diolch i cynghorydd Peter Scott am ei godio, ond mi fasa yn gwrtais i gysylltu hefo fi fel y cynghorydd lleol. A da chi hefyd yn y cofnodion yn cyfeirio at gravity valve. Os dwi'n cofio'n iawn, mae hon ar afonig bach sy'n dod o cefn meiriadog i Llanelwy i fynd i'r Elwy, ond dydy hynny ddim yn cael ei nodi lle mae'r falf sydd yn y cofnodion. Felly, os ga i ofyn yn garedig i nhw gael eu cywiro, fyswn ni'n hynod o ddiolchgar i chi. Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other issues on the minutes?
Yes, Chair, please, got my hand up.
Okay, Councillor.
I have as well, Chair.
Who do you want?
Yep, Councillor Pennington.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask Bobby, item 6, notice of motion, we wrote to the government, Westminster government, asking them to relax the immigration rules to allow care workers back. Can you tell us what the response was, please?
Well, I sent the response to everybody.
Yes, I would just like it publicly stated in this meeting.
Well, it's a letter, isn't it? I haven't got it in front of me, so without repeating it, my opinion was that the response was disappointing, and it didn't really address the questions. It certainly didn't say they were going to relook at their skills tests for immigration, which is what we'd asked for towards social care. And overall, we weren't allowed either to write individually to the, I wrote to the Prime Minister, to the Home Secretary, and to the Minister for Health, but it had to go via the MP in the Vale of Clwyd, and the response came from somebody who was, just a Whitehall worker, well, probably somebody higher than that. I haven't got his details. A civil servant, anyway, suffice to say. And really, it didn't address what I had sent, in my view. I mean, you've obviously read it, Paul, as well, and yeah. I would imagine you agree with me.
I agree entirely.
But so it wasn't very successful. Let's put it like that. So disappointing.
Thank you, Bobby. Thanks for your efforts.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gwyneth Kendall, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Just materion yn codi o dan flood event rhif 5, sôn am storm Ciara. Fys ni just yn hoffi datgan diolch i'r tîm sydd wedi bod yn gweithio oherwydd y storm arwen wythnos dwytha, ac fys ni'n licio llongyfarch y tîm a diolch iddyn nhw am gyfathrebu efo ni.
Thank you, Gwyneth. Councillor Mervyn Parry, please.
I've taken mine down. I'll address it later on, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. No other hands I can see. So do we have a second, a proposer for the minutes and a seconder, please? Christine.
Cynnig wedi cywiro.
Yeah, is everybody in agreement? Yep, everybody in agreement. No dissenters. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
I don't know whether anybody else is having the same problem. It's Bobby here, Alan. You keep fading out, and you know, it doesn't seem to be switching from Welsh to English very well. Perhaps that's the reason. I don't know, but it's quite difficult this morning.
Same here, Bobby.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, Roger's just gone into the technical area just to check, see before we carry on. Just bear with us for a minute or two. Yeah,
I've never had this problem.
Okay, what we'll do, we'll carry on. I think we've got quite a heavy morning, so we'll go straight on to agenda item 5, which is the 20th of January 2021 flood event, section 19 flood investigation report. Councillor Brian Jones, I understand you're going to introduce this report. We've also got in attendance Tony Ward, Wayne Hope, and also Ryan Knowles from NRW. So whenever you're ready, Councillor Jones, that'd be good. Councillor Brian Jones, please.
Okay, so this the reason for making this report, we're legally bound under section 19 of the Flood and Water Management Act, which requires the council to investigate instances of flooding in the county and also to subsequently publish a report of the findings. Not sure if Tim Towers is with us this morning as well, with the rest of the attendees, and welcome to Ryan Knowles from Natural Resources Wales. Good that they're involved and working closely with us along with Welsh Water. The report itself is obviously the 2021 flood event. We've had 2 or 3 of these coming along, so not to get confused with the previous events that we've been discussing recently. This investigation report has been to scrutiny and it was given a good thrashing round there. There was some recommendations from the scrutiny meeting that are in motion at the moment. Things are being worked on following that scrutiny meeting recommendations. In as far as the flooding event that we're discussing this morning, there was main river flooding at locations at Rhythin, Ddinbych, Llandurnog, Loggerheads and Corwyn. There was also other issues of surface water and in some instances associating flooding in a lot of areas. They're all there in the report plaque, stretching from Llandurnog through to Dizzer, Boddlewyd and St Asaph. There was quite a number of issues connected with this flood event. So that's a brief introduction to this report. There has been some positive things that have come out of it that I've mentioned previously at meetings. Nothing more so than the flood task and finish group that has been set up. And this is the group, as I'm sure you'll already be aware, that encapsulates Natural Resources Wales, Welsh Water. I believe the Farmers Union have been involved in the meetings along with the Denbighshire team, and that's done a lot of good work. There will be a report, I believe. We don't actually sit on that group, but I believe that there is a lot of good work that's been done, and it will come forward in a formal report before the end of this council. And again, I keep beating the drum. I sincerely hope that this task and finish group, looking at the flood issues, it will morph into something potentially in the corporate plan
next time into a different body, and will sit within the climate change strategy when we're in the next council for whoever is around in the next council. So with that brief introduction, in order of seniority, I will hand over to Tony Ward, Head of Service, who will give a brief summary of his view on this report. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, as Brian said, this Section 19 report relates to the flood events of January 2021. Unfortunately, we're becoming quite well versed in these flood investigation reports now. We've had a few recently, but as a reminder, the purpose of the Section 19 report is to address three key questions. Why did the flooding happen? How likely is it for that scale of flooding to happen again? And what improvement actions are needed to ensure flood risk in the county is appropriately managed in future? So the report sets out to answer those three key questions in relation to each of the locations where flooding of property occurred. A summary of the recommendations is provided from page 36 onwards in the pack. And as it has been stated already, we have a number of officers here to help answer any questions that members have today, including Tim Towers and Wayne Hope from my service, and also Ryan Knowles from Natural Resources Wales. Ryan is here because NRW have a key role to play in relation to managing flood risk from main rivers, and much of the flooding that occurred in January 2021 emanated from main rivers. So thank you to Ryan for agreeing to come along today. So I thought I would just leave my introduction there, Chair, and invite members to ask questions, and we will, between us, we will endeavour to respond to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I've got a list here. First of all, I've got Councillor Martin Holland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't expecting to be first called, but there you go. Can I say, obviously, I've read the report, and you know, there's a lot of issues in there, but I'm going to just briefly talk about my own ward, and I'm not, you know, in depth, but in the report it just mentions that Llanarmonial and loggerheads are affected at times. I'm fortunate, or we're fortunate in the ward, that normally only roughly about 4 properties are involved, and one of them is in Maeshaven. They're all older properties, and they're all residents are all elderly. So whenever it rains heavily here, I dump my wellies, and at least I know which 3 or 4 properties to go to see if they're safe. I think the key to this is that one thing is trying to predict this, but also it's actually trying to help those individuals when they are being flooded. And particularly the one in Maeshaven, which seems to be attacked from both sides. I have had meetings with Natural Resources Wales, Ryan, in the past over these particular issues, and of course the fourth one in my ward is Loggerheads, which is the country park. And when we do get flooding, the park itself is often flooded, and some of the buildings are touched by that as well. Can I just say that, you know, other than fire, flooding is one of the most devastating impacts on people's lives and their properties. And I just hope that we keep in mind those of us who have rural areas where, yes, not large numbers of properties affected, but there are some lives affected quite badly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person on the list is Councillor Emrys Wynne, please.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Ac aina hefyd roed yn sylw arbennig ar yr athfadau lleol yn Rhuthun, os gwelwch yn dda. Dyn ni'n sôn am waelod stryd Clwyd yn yr achos yma, a hefyd stryd y Felin. Dyn ni'n gwybod pam ddigwyddodd yr llifogydd, dyn ni'n gwybod bod yna fesurau diweddar wedi digwydd yn yr ardal yn Erwan er mwyn codi lefel y bynd, fydd gobeithio yn arbed yr ardal hon o'r dre at y dyfodol, a dyn ni'n ddiolchgar iawn bod y gwaith hwnnw wedi mynd rhagddo o'r diwedd. Wrth gwrs, fedrwn ni byth dweud a wneith o byth ddigwydd eto. Ac i ateb geisio rhyw fath o ateb y tri cwestiwn yr oedd Tony Ward yn sôn, sef pam, sut, pa mor debyg ydi o ddigwydd eto, a beth sydd yno i helpu i arbed o'r ag digwydd eto. Wel, dyn ni wedi codi lefel y bynd, mae hwn yn ateb y cwestiwn ola i raddau. Ond, sut dyn ni'n mynd i ymateb os ydy o'n mynd i ddigwydd eto? Gai sicrwydd os gwelwch yn dda, o fi wrth y sir a neu Cyfoeth Naturiol Cymru, bod bob adwy sydd yn mynd i rwystro, sydd yn debygol o rwystro unrhyw lifogydd rhag gallu diflannu ar ardal hon yn cael i'w cadw'n glir. Dyn ni'n sôn am, mae'n strwythur mae'n debyg ar y ffens sydd yn atal yr afon rhag gorlifo i fewn i stryd. Ond wrth gwrs mae'r un strwythur hefyd, o bosib, wedi cadw'r dŵr ar y stryd lle fasa fo, pedai ddim yna, wedi caniatáu'r dŵr fynd i'r afon a lleihau yr her. Dyn ni'n sôn am ddreiniad yr ardal. Gawn ni sicrwydd os gwelwch yn dda, bydd bob draen yn cael ei gadw yn glir yn rheolaidd, a bod yn cael ei archwilio yn fwy aml nag unwaith bob 6 mis. Dwi'n meddwl bod hi'n amser, oherwydd sefyllfa mae hi efo'r hinsawdd a newid yr hinsawdd a bob dim, mae hyn yn mynd i ddigwydd yn mwy aml. Mae'n reidrwydd arno ni bod ni yn cadw golwg ac yn archwilio unrhyw raen sydd yn mynd i gynorthwyo i atal i'r pethau rhag mynd yn arbennig o ddrwg fel wnaethon nhw ar yr 20fed o Ionawr, bod na drefn yn ei lle, bod rhain yn cael eu harchwilio dydwch bob rhyw 3 mis hyd yn oed. Mae bob beth yn costio, dwi'n gwybod, ond mae'r gos yn aruthrol i'r drigolion pan mae'n taro eu cartrefi nhw hefyd. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor. Do officers want to respond to that before we move on? I've got Councillor Christine Marston next, and then Councillor Peter Scott, please.
I have got my hand raised, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Chamberlain-Jones, you're on the list, but you're a little way down the list at the moment.
Thank you.
I have spotted you, so thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, did you want us to respond to those two ones first before we moved on? Is that what I heard? Sorry.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm sure Ryan and Wayne and possibly Tim might want to come back on some of these points, particularly in relation to Councillor Emrys Wynn's comments about Rithing. What I would say in relation to highways drainage, that we are undertaking a comprehensive review of highways drainage at the moment. Tim Towers is leading on that. And what we will be doing in the meantime, because that review will take some time, is that we plan to focus on a number of well-known hotspot areas for highways drainage and increase the regularity that we go there to inspect and clear out gullies. However, that said, clearly the flooding that occurred in Rithing that evening emanated from the main river, and the highways drainage system there actually has always served its purpose, which is to remove surface water from the highway. The volume of water that entered that area on that evening was far in excess of anything that any highways drainage system would have coped with. So that wasn't actually the issue there. But I don't know if Ryan or others want to come in at that point and add some comments.
Hey Tony, I'm happy to. Just want to extend my thanks to everyone for allowing NRW to attend today's meeting. And obviously we'd like to extend our sympathies to everyone who was affected by the flooding in January of this year, because we don't underestimate the significance of the impact that it has on people's lives and the trauma it can bring. So yes, the key area affected by well, during the storm Christoph was in Ruthin, and the main source of flooding was overtopping of the Cythol embankments, which resulted in flooding of several dozen properties, residential and commercial. Obviously, since the events that occurred earlier in the year, NLW have been quite active and initially responded to a number of defects in terms of damage and blockage that experienced in the channel, and to various flood defence structures that were damaged during the event. In addition, in October this year, we've gone in to undertake some improvement works to the Cythol embankments, involving raising of certain sections of that embankment to create a uniform defence level. In addition to that, we've also been working with the community, providing newsletters to update them on progress on where things have got to and what our next steps are. And those are set out in the flood investigation report that is appended to the report that the council are reviewing today. So there's a series of recommendations that are set out in that report that we are aiming to deliver. One of which is in relation to improved community engagement and the establishment of a partnership flood group that we're trying to work with Ruthin Town Council on. So I'm not sure if that deals entirely with all of the queries raised by Councillor Wynne. Obviously, Tony, you've expanded on the issues around highway drainage, and obviously the sheer volume of waters overtopping the Cythol embankments, as you say, couldn't be drained out via those highway drains.
Can I just come back on that then, because reference was made to myself just now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a very quick response. Yes. My point is, yes, I know the flooding emanated from the river, an overflow of the river bursting its banks and coming over the bund. I understand all that, but there may have been a situation there where certain structures which were in place exacerbated the situation, if you like, on that evening, because water was not able to flow away from that area back towards the river due to the structures. I'm speaking in particular about the one which is on the fence, which is there to prevent the water from the river coming onto the street. And yes, there is the continued debate about the valve, which should have been able to carry some water away on that evening, and may or may not have been working, depending on the level of the aspect of the report that you take on board. That is my position is, yes, it's happened. Can we prevent any consequential problems by allowing the water to get away as quickly as possible, should it, God forbid, ever happen again?
Just if I can just come back briefly, Chair. Myself and went down to Ruthin.
Tony, can you switch your camera off? You're breaking up, please.
Sorry, I do apologise. Is that any better?
That's fine. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Yeah, just to say that myself and Wayne Hope did have a site visit down to Ruthin last week, where we met a couple of residents who unfortunately had experienced flooding in January. We had a walk round, we had a look at some of the assets, and we did discuss a couple of things that we would look into in terms of how we might be able to improve the effectiveness of some of those assets. Myself and Wayne are going to look into that and take that away and look into it in more detail and respond accordingly. I think one of the things that came up, and I think Emrys, you kind of alluded to this, is what can be done if this were to happen again. As you say, And we'd all agree that nobody can guarantee that an event like this couldn't happen again in future. There's always a risk of flooding occurring at any location at any time. And yeah, obviously what residents are asking is, if that were to happen again, is there anything more can be done to prevent that water that comes from the river entering properties? And I think that's the discussion that on Wednesday, when me and Wayne went to Ruthin to talk to some of the residents, we committed to having a further discussion with Natural Resources Wales about that issue, because it's not a straightforward issue, but we obviously understand the question and why residents are asking it. So we've not had the opportunity to have that discussion yet. And I've not spoken to Ryan about it, but Ryan will probably need to have a conversation offline after the meeting about that discussion we had last week, so that we can come up with a joint view and a joint response on that issue, if that's okay.
Of course, Tony, no problem.
Yeah, Tony.
Can I just add as well, in terms of future flood risks as well, because obviously I'm conscious that members may be concerned about future flooding events and the magnitude and risks associated with climate change. So one of the exercises that we are doing at Natural Resources Wales is undertaking detailed modelling work to understand how the existing flood defences can perform under certain flood conditions. And based on that, we can then assess how climate change might increase those risks, whether or not it's necessary to undertake further improvements to the entirety of the scheme through Ruthin, not just the isolated section at Caeddol. But those are future pieces of work that we will be exploring. And obviously that would need to go through a formal business case and approval process should there be a need to improve those defences through Ruthin, because obviously we all recognise flood defences can reduce risks, but they can't eliminate it completely. But we want to have them as robust as we can.
And sorry, Chair, what I should have added is these kind of discussions, the point I just made and the point made by Ryan, I think these are the kind of discussions that we will be having with this flood partnership group, so that the community are involved. Sorry, my video's on again for some reason. I'll switch it off. Yeah, so that the community are involved, and we work together with the partnership on these matters. So that's all I wanted to say on that. I don't know if anybody wants to come back in relation to Martin's comments.
Just to intervene a minute, I do have quite a list of speakers, so I'll invite the speakers in, and if in the event that they're I'm going to regret saying this, I think, but in the event of some of the questions not coming back or answers that people have got, then we'll sort that as we go along. So can I ask Christine Marston, Councillor Christine Marston, to come forward, and then it's Councillor Peter Scott, please.
Thank you, Chair. Why isn't infrastructure included in the report? Llanach Bridge was lost on the 23rd of January. No properties were flooded, but it has had a devastating effect, both economically and socially, on the community. It troubles me that DCC are building a business case to present to Welsh Government to gain funding, hopefully gain funding to replace the bridge, but it doesn't. The loss of a bridge doesn't even feature in its own flood event report. Thank you, Chair.
Do officers want to come back on that first before we go on to Peter Scott?
Wayne, do you want to respond to that one?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Thanks, Chair, and Christine. The flood investigations you're right, they do focus on property and where there's been a risk to life as a consequence of a flood. So that's the only reason that the bridge was omitted. I mean, in terms of the cause of the bridge's collapse, it was associated with the main river. So I suppose it could be argued that it should have been part of NRW's flood investigation report. But it's something. It's an interesting point, and it's something that maybe I'll take up with Welsh governments, because it's linked into the requirements of the Flood and Water Management Act, which does to some extent overlook the impact of floods on critical infrastructure, particularly where it affects a very well used or arterial route in the county. So yeah, if it's okay, Christine, I will take that up with Welsh Government just to gauge their views on that, whether the flood investigation report should be extended to cover important pieces of infrastructure.
If I could just add that, although the report isn't required to cover infrastructure, which is why it focuses on flooded property, that doesn't mean that we're not very concerned about the bridge, and we are, as we had a discussion recently in Cabinet, we are taking forward plans to try and pursue funding opportunities to replace the bridge. So because it's not in this report doesn't mean it's not an important issue.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Councillor Peter Scott, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think we learnt a lot from Chiara and Dennis about all this flooding, but thanks for this report. We had a few issues in Sarsaf at Roe Park, but NRW have completed the repairs on there. There's still one that's outstanding, but we know about that one. I'm glad to see that Denbighshire have got a new maintenance gully cleaning regime, which should help to keep the surface water down, which I think most of flooding from Christoph in Sarsaf was from surface water in the end. And finally, Jed, not to prolong the meeting, we did have a problem with the non-return valve at Lower Denby Road, which was clogged with debris. I actually reported on the Sunday, and NRW came out first thing Monday morning and cleared it, which is wonderful. So thanks very much for the prompt response from NRW. But from my point of view and Sarsaf's point of view, I think maintenance to the gullies and all the rest of the flood defences is the key to stopping us flooding again. If we keep everything maintained and clean, water will get away and we'll be fine. Not really a question, Chair, but just a response from myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Right, Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis, please, and then I've got Councillor Hugh Evans as well.
Llawer o ddiolch, parchus Cadeirydd, os gai, a diolch i Cynghorydd Christy Marsden am atgoffa chi gyd am pont y Llanerch. Gai ofyn fel hyn, dwi'm yn gweld dim cyfeiriad at unrhyw dai ar yr afonelwy o Llanelwy i Bont yr Allt Goch ac fyny am Bont y Ddôl. A yw hynny'n golygu na ddu unrhyw drafferthion o'r elwy nac o'r afonig fach sydd yn bwydo'r elwy i unrhyw dai yn y plwy cymeriadog. Yr ail gwestiwn, ond nid oes adroddiad Cymraeg oddi wrth Cyfoeth Naturiol Cymru i gael yn Saesneg mae'r un sydd gyda i. A'r trydydd, yn y cyfnodion Saesneg, y 12 o Hydref, da ni wedi cyfeirio at Cyfoeth Naturiol Cymru, fydd ateb gweddol fuan pryd fydden nhw'n gwneud y gwaith sydd wedi argymell a ni anfon atyn nhw, ond dim yn gwybod fydd ymatebion gweddol fuan. A pan da chi'n codi clawdd arbed y llifogydd, fel da chi wedi deud yn Rhuthun, pam nad oes uchder mwy na'r ffigurau da chi'n weithio allan yn cael ei adeiladu. Rath ag oedd yr hen beirianwyr yn gwneud. Y safety margin, dwi'n meddwl o'n nhw'n alw, ia. Dwi'n siŵr wneith yr arbenigwyr fedru ymateb i hwnna. A mae yna deipo bach yn does ar tudalen 26. How likely is it for the scale of flooding to happen again? A mae'n deud yn y linell ole, determine the likelihhood of flooding happening. Likelihood, mwy na thebyg ydy'r gair. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Mary. Do officers want to come back on this one, or should we press on? Okay, no response from that. Councillor Hugh Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll leave my screen off because the connection isn't too good today, if that's okay. Thanks for the report. I was quite surprised with the report, Chairman, the fact that nearly all of us seem to have been affected. And even the rural areas, the high areas and rural areas have been affected. So all the residents seem to be having flooding issues in their properties. So on the back of that, as climate change becomes more sort of a normal occurrence, and here we are, there's another storm today. Can I just ask what the service is doing to increase capacity to deal with this? Because it's going to be the norm. It's not going to be something that happens, you know, uniquely. So I'd like to have some assurance in terms of how the service is approaching capacity issues, and also Natural Resource Wales. Are they adapting their practice as well and creating capacity to help us deal with this? Is my first question from a leader perspective. And if I can put my local member hat on, Chair, the issues in Llanfair in particular, can I seek assurance from the officers that the work required to protect those properties is happening pretty quickly now? And can they give us an idea when that will be completed to protect those properties? Diolch, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can we have a response from officers before we move on those questions, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry, I was trying to get off mute earlier when you were asking if anybody wanted to make a comment, and I couldn't get off mute. In relation to that, one of those last questions from Hugh, in terms of reviewing capacity, I assume, Hugh, you were talking about staff capacity there, rather than
yes,
infrastructure. Yeah, okay, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, we are undertaking a comprehensive review of the highways drainage function at the moment, and that will inevitably lead to a discussion around the resources we have available to deliver what we think we need to deliver in future. So that is a consideration, but we haven't got an answer yet in terms of that. Until we've completed that review, we won't really know. So it may be that we come to a conclusion at the end of that we haven't got sufficient capacity in that area to deliver what we need to do, but we will obviously you know, reach that conclusion once the review is complete. In terms of our general capacity to respond to storms, you know, I think we do reasonably okay in terms of our kind of operational response. I think, you know, obviously each storm is different and brings different issues, and they're of different scale. And the one recently was actually really challenging. I know that Tim is on the meeting today, and Tim was the duty officer that evening or that weekend, and it was a very challenging event. But so obviously what we do is we have a number of teams internally who we put on standby when we get predicted storms. We also have some contractors who we put on standby to assist as well. So I think in terms of the kind of operational response, we do okay. Whether we need to put more resource into some of the preventative work is a conclusion yet to be reached. But I don't know if anybody had any other responses to any of the other questions that have been raised since then. I'll leave that open for everyone else to jump in.
Tony, can I come in? Oh, sorry, Wayne.
No, sorry, Ryan. I was just going to introduce you and ask you to respond to Merrick. But Merrick, apologies for the spelling mistake. I do throw one or two in just to make sure that people are observant. But Brian, regarding the queries that Merrick raised regarding isolated properties, and also
there were three questions I jotted down. So if I go through them, then hopefully that will address. So we will investigate cases of reports of flooding on the basis of us receiving information that properties have flooded. So in the absence of any information about the LWI, I would suggest we probably haven't received any reports property were impacted in January 2021 during Christoph. Obviously, if the councillor has got information that they can share with us, then obviously we can look into that matter. But as I understand, we're not aware of any particular flooding from the Elwy. In terms of the Welsh language version of the report, I can make inquiries to see whether or not the reports that we've prepared that were appended to the council report today, to see if there are Welsh versions of those. And I can make those available if and when they are available. The councillor also made reference to a safety margin, and I think that perhaps may relate to something we call a freeboard. So when we are designing flood defences, whether they're soft embankments or hard flood walls, hard structures, it's common practice that we will apply a margin on top of the defence level. So obviously we can predict flood levels and we can design structures to contain those, but also as a measure of safety or a factor of safety, we will apply a freeboard to those. So any new schemes that we develop, including Sentasa, for example, there was a freeboard of 300 millimetres applied to the crest level of the defence to deal with uncertainty and this safety margin. So I hope those address the queries raised by Councillor Lloyd. Moving on to Councillor Evans about capacity in the future. I think if members are interested, you can go to NRW's website and look at our response to storms Kira and Dennis. And I know that's different to Christoph here, but there was an extensive review undertaken as part of that following the floods, and resourcing and capacity featured heavily in there. So if you're interested in finding out more, you can go to our website and look at that. We are having discussions with Welsh Government about funding to deal with the pressures resulting from climate change emergency, for example. But just want to note and put on record that there is an issue with skills. So we are trying to recruit. We've gone through a flood risk management Wales-wide recruitment campaign, and we are finding it very difficult to find people out there with the skills that we require to deliver flood risk activity work. So I hope that's helpful.
Chair, can I just come back to the leader's question about Llanfair?
Yes, Wayne.
Hugh, we're currently in discussions with an upstream landowner whose land we need to carry out some work on. I've got a meeting this afternoon with our consultants just to get the latest update on that work, and I'll provide you with that update in due course, if that's okay.
Thanks very much. Thanks for that. Councillor Chamberlain-Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. All the officers that are with us today know the problem that we've had along Ford Derwin. That's been ongoing as long as I've been a councillor, from 2004. There was an in-depth report commissioned. I believe they had it some 4 years ago. Councillor Ellichard and I, as the local councillors, met with NRW, Wayne Hope. Steve Parker at the time was the officer. I feel frustrated that it costs lots and lots of money to have these reports done, and yet they just lie there as reports. Nothing's been done. From our meeting, what they were going to do, nothing has really been done. I thank Tony Ward that he did step in and do some remedial work, but at the last floods was only saved from the houses again along Ford Derwin being flooded, because we had to have tankers there pumping out the ditch. And Councillor Chard and I stayed there nearly all night watching that, just in case we had to go and rescue the people in the little bungalows that are all along Ford Derwin. It's very frustrating to know that reports are there and the recommendations, and yet nothing's done due to the fact that there's no money available. And yet I feel frustrated with NRW when they can agree planning applications for sites that are and have been flooded, i.e. the McDonald's site, and yet recently didn't support a planning application for Real College, which hasn't been flooded. So it's mixed messages. As a local councillor, it's very frustrating when you have to defend all these issues. But my real question is, what is the point of having these expensive surveys done in order to seek to eliminate the flooding when they're just archived and nothing is done? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any response from officers on that particular issue?
Yes, please, Chair. I'll come back to Jeanette on that one. Thanks, Jeanette, for those comments regarding Forderwen. And yeah, I appreciate the concerns and frustrations, but just by way of an update, we carried out an outline business case that we submitted to Welsh Government for approval. They came back with some fairly extensive questions about the business case. It is a challenging problem to solve. We've responded to those queries, and I'm expecting that they'll approve the outline business case, and then that will allow us to develop what's described as a full business case, which is essentially the design of the scheme, which means that we'll be able to, subject to funding approval from Welsh Government and Denbighshire match funding, we'll be able to proceed and build something. Now, in terms of the pipeline and the programme, the timeline to do that work, the actual physical work on site, I'm going to aim to have that work at least started on site next financial year. That's my ambition, my goal, if you like. There are lots of hurdles to cross before we get to that stage. But no, please rest assured that the reports don't just sit on a shelf doing nothing. We're beavering away in the background, trying to get Welsh Government approval and trying to put these schemes together in a way that they can be successfully delivered. If that, hopefully that gives you some reassurance.
Yes, thank you, Wayne. You know that every time it rains, and today will be the same, well, it's at the front door, yeah, and I'll be down there keeping my eye on it. But I would like a response from NRW, please, as to why the differential, when we had that meeting, why they can, one end of Forderwen doesn't flood and one end does, and yet their reports for planning are different. It's very important for the future, is that. So,
Councillor Jones.
Do you want to come back in on that one, Ryan?
Jones, I mean, so we're a statutory consultee to the planning authority. The planning authority are the decision maker, and if the planning committee are involved in that, then obviously they assess the information that's provided by the applicant. So as part of new development proposals, an applicant would need to submit a technical report called a flood consequences assessment, and that uses data that risk management authorities like ourselves have, and they use that to assess risk at a site. We are then, our role in NRW is to provide advice to the planning authority about the acceptability of risk that's identified at that site through third-party reports. But ultimately, we can object or raise concerns, but obviously planning authorities have to weigh up lots of different matters when coming to their decisions, and flood risk is a material constraint, but other things can be given greater weight when making the decisions. We aren't the decision maker, we give advice, so we're the advisor to the planning authority. The planning authority make those decisions.
Chair, with your permission, can I reply?
Yeah, quickly then, please, because I've got
I'm quite aware of all the planning conditions and recommendations that you have to do. My point is this: how can we have assurance from yourselves that it's not conflicting when at one stage you will give a consent and your reports support a planning application, which is, you know very well, that has stood in a terrible flood area, and yet refuse to an area where it hasn't been flooded, it's mixed messages, and I need some reassurance on that, because it, quite frankly, it's very confusing, particularly to those on the planning committee.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Councillor Jones. I know that one of the items that we've worked through the Denbighshire Task and Finish Flood Risk Group is to engage about what the planning policy aims to achieve when it comes to new developments in flood risk areas. We've also been out a few years ago and delivered a training session for planning committee members too, to try and explain what our role is in that process. So if you feel that further work is required to address that or to help understand what our role is, then we can certainly offer to do that.
No, sorry, I think the planning committee got it right and voted it in favour. Thank you.
Okay, okay. If it's felt that the planning committees need more training in the future, I think that's something that needs to be discussed with our planning department and with the committee members. Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Bobby Feely, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, just adding on to what Emrys Wynne said in Ruthin, I think with the dangers of flooding becoming more and more worrying because of climate change, it is so important that everything that can be done is done. I appreciate we can't, you know, we can't do the impossible, but we can do the possible. So let's make sure everything is done in terms of what's possible. To try and prevent, you know, when an overtop does happen, to try and prevent it causing damage to residents and property. And obviously my heart goes out to everyone in the Ruthin area and across Denbighshire, everyone who's been affected by flooding at any time. It is, as somebody else has already said, it's very disheartening. And I'd like to thank the team for what they have done to now, and also what's likely to be done soon in the future. So that being said, I feel sort of duty bound as the portfolio heritage holder for heritage, in the same vein as Christine Marsden said, that the jail has not been given the attention that we had hoped it would be given. And in effect, because the damage wasn't tackled, it was more or less overlooked at the time. So we are not going to be able to open our premier attraction in Clwyd Street in Ruthin. We're not going to be able to open it until next July 22, because of the hold-ups. And like Christine, this hasn't even been mentioned. I mean, the damage to our jail and the archive, where the archives are housed as well, has been so severe. And it's not even mentioned in this report. Only, you know, I know that residents and life and limb and houses, I know that's very, very important. But as far as Ruthin is concerned, and as far as I would not be doing my duty if I did not raise the fact that the jail was not mentioned in this report, and at the time was not tackled very well. So thanks for all you have done, but you know, I feel duty bound to bring up that point.
Thanks, Councillor Feely. Right, I've got Councillor Orwell Roberts next, please.
Pnawn da eto, sy'n mai, diolch yn fawr iawn am y cyfle I siarad. A diolch i'r swyddogion, Wayne, Tony a Ryan. Dwi'n edrych ar sefyllfa yma yn Rhuddlan, ac wrth gwrs, nôl at ffordd Abergele, ac ydych chi'n dweud yn eich adroddiad bod yna un tŷ wedi cael llifogydd. Dwi'm yn gwybod enw'r tŷ yna, sy'n ni falch am cael gwybod. Ac rydych chi wedi dweud bod yna waith yn mynd I ddigwydd ar Pont Robin. A dwi'n gwybod yn iawn eich bod chi wedi gwneud llawer o waith yno yn barod. oes na fwriad I wneud mwy o waith yna, achos mae Pont Robin yn mynd o dan ffordd Abergele a mynd trwy stad diwydiannol. Fysa ni'n hoffi gwybod am hynny. Ac edrych ar y dyfodol, ac da chi'n mynd ar hyd yr afon Clwyd, am y môr, ac ar y chwith, mae yna ddarnau o dir sydd ddim yn cael ei ffermio. Ydy'n fwriad gennych chi I roi dŵr yn fanno, fel rhaid chi gofio, mae ystyr morfa ydy dŵr gwlyb ofnadwy. Hynny yw swamp. Ydy chi yn meddwl sa'n well bod chi'n gadael dŵr yn fan yno I leddfu llifogydd mewn ardaloedd eraill uwch I fyny. Ac yn drydydd I gefnogi Christina hefyd, da ni'n gwybod beth ddigwyddodd efo Pont Llanerch. Y rheswm falle benna oedd bod yna goed wedi dod I lawr fel bwledi ar hyd yr afon. Ac mae hyn yn mynd I ddigwydd rhywun ofni yn Rhydlan ar y bont hynafol. Pwy sydd yn clirio y coed sydd ar ochr yr afonydd yma? Dyna di'n cwestiwn mawr I. Pwy sydd wrthi yn neud yn siŵr bod y coed yma yn cael ei symud o'na fel oedd yn digwydd yn yr hen amser. Ac dwi'n ofni bod hyn yn cael ei daflu ar y tirfeddianwyr. Be mae Cyfoeth Naturiol Cymru yn wneud a Cyngor Sir yn gwneud I helpu hyn? Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mr. Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Arwell. Do officers want to respond to that particular one before we move on, please?
Chair, can I respond in part and then hand over to Ryan, because most of the comments that Arwell made were in relation to main rivers. But Arwell, you mentioned the property that was flooded. We make a point of not making direct reference to individual properties because there are issues of, potential issues of blight, etc., etc. So I think if I can speak to you outside of the meeting regarding exactly what property it is. But the other points that you raised were relevant to Ryan, I think most of all. So Ryan, if you're happy to come back to RL regarding some of the main river issues there.
Yeah, of course. Arwell will appreciate that the area of Rhydlan there is at risk from lots of different sources. So we've got Pont Robin, which is a main river watercourse that conveys river flow, and you've got the tidal Clwyd that bounds the community there, and balancing risk from those different sources is a challenge, especially when, for example, there are high tides, for example. It reduces the effectiveness of how our outfall structures can discharge river flooding into the Clwyd. So yes, there's been some work undertaken in recent years to improve the outfall structure and make it more resilient for Pont Robin to, if there wasn't a failure of the flap, it makes it more resilient as a mechanism for isolating that structure so that the tidal water doesn't ingress upstream and affect the communities behind the Clwyd embankments. Obviously, it's a challenge trying to manage the river flows and the fluvial floodwaters when you might become strained by a high tide, for example. So I think there are options being explored to how to manage those volumes of water that become trapped behind the earth embankments during tidal flood conditions. I don't know any more specific details about what the future looks like, but I'm sure that there will be work plans in relevant teams within NLW looking at what work can be done to minimise risk, but obviously that has to be prioritised against other communities that may also experience risk. So if I'm appearing vague, I apologise, but I don't know the specifics to answer Arwell, but I just hope that the general overview is okay. And if you've got specific queries and know that you're involved, you've got contacts in NLW that if you want to make further inquiries, then we'll be happy to help.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Can I go on to David?
Excuse me, Chair, the answer to clearing of trees along banks has not been answered. Thank you.
Okay, my apologies. Yes.
Does anybody have an answer to that particular one before we move on?
I think reference was made to the main structure that spans the Clwyd, and I think the asset owner, which I believe is Denbighshire Council, is the Highways Authority. They have responsibility to clear any trees or debris that build up on that structure.
My question is, how and what do Natural Resources Wales and Denbighshire do before floods? What do they do before? What do the landowners do? And who keeps an eye on them, clearing the trees on the side of rivers?
So in terms of our operational role, there are structures that our teams will go out and monitor during flood conditions. So if we're forecasting, for example, today, Storm Barra, there are key locations around North Wales that we'll go and inspect and make sure that those structures are clear of debris. But in terms of proactive work, we will undertake annual asset walkovers. So we've got river engineers that will walk up and downstream and identify issues with fallen trees, for example, and work with landowners to remove those if there's a deemed flood risk from that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much for that. Councillor David Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, it's a very simple question, a very brief question to Wayne and Ryan, and if possible, I'd like a very brief and concise answer. When will work start on the flood defence scheme?
Thank you for that question, David. And I wish there was a simple answer. It will be as soon as possible, but the scheme is still in development. We're trying to create a scheme that is as simple and straightforward and as cost effective as possible. And one of the things that we're looking at now to allow that to happen is looking at whether we can build in some upstream storage using natural flood management approaches. And that's around trying to make the scheme more affordable, because it is looking like it would be very expensive per individual property. So it's work in progress. And I just wonder if maybe it's going forward, if we could perhaps, you and I, have more sort of regular meetings just to update you on progress, because I appreciate it has been.
Yeah, that would be nice, Wayne, because
it's been frustratingly slow for you, no doubt.
Yeah, it has, because I mean, this is the story I was given. I appreciate it's not your fault, Wayne, but this is the story I was given 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, we know what you want to do above the waterfalls and so on, but you know, I'm at the sharp end with residents who, and it's all very well saying these events are unlikely to happen again. I can assure you they will. And I'd like some of the people that say they're not going to happen again, I'd like them to be with me when it does happen and face some of the residents that are going to be flooded. So yes, Wayne, it'd be nice if we could get together and see if we can move this forward, please, you know, ASAP. Thank you.
Yeah, I can give you assurances in that regard, David. Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks very much for that. Right, I've got Councillor Peter Evans now, please.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. It's a flooding at Pwllgor Bont, Melodon. Bearing in mind this area of land is more often than not waterlogged because of its topography and the time of year. How is the monitoring going to take place going forward? Can I have an answer to that, please?
Okay.
Peter, I'll try to answer that. It's the situation at Pwllgor Bont is quite complex. You've got various sources of potential flood risk. The main river has definitely got a role to play. I mean, it's a small watercourse, but it's defined as a main river, and surface water as well. I think what happened in the most recent event was really a consequence of the sheer volume of rainwater. It was an extreme event. The rain gauge data suggests that in parts of the county it was around about a 1 in 200 year rainfall event. So it's difficult to envisage how you could protect against that. It's on what is a very long list of locations to investigate further and to hopefully improve the situation. So again, I suppose along similar lines to Councillor Williams, I think maybe we need to set up perhaps more regular meetings just to discuss how to take this forward and make sure it maintains the momentum it needs to make improvement work.
Thanks for that, Wayne. Also, too, on page 39, Melon, the Dempsey County Council and Natural Resources Wales are to carry out, as you just said, further investigations into the case of the flooding and carry out measures to reduce flood risk if appropriate. I would have thought it would be a necessity, considering one of the residents had to vacate their property for up to 6 months.
I think it's difficult to think of an appropriate, I've used the word appropriate, an appropriate form of words to describe what I'm saying there is that if the flood occurred due to an event that was of such a severe nature that you can't really plan for it, then improvement works have to be funded, and generally the council relies on Welsh Government grants. NRW are in the same position. If the event was what's described as an exceedance event, it's very difficult to make a case for improvement works to be carried out. We try to develop business cases in a way that demonstrate that improvement works are justified, and that's what we'll do in this case. But we've got some ground to cover before we get to that stage, I think, Peter. I think it's just it's a note of caution in a way. It's a caveat that whilst flooding's not acceptable, there isn't always something that we can do to prevent it.
Well, this has happened twice in this area in my time, so I can see it happening again when we have another storm. And at the rate we're having storms at the moment, I don't think that'll be too far ahead.
It's an absolute valid point. A 1 in 200 year storm today in 5 years' time might only be a 1 in 50 year storm. It is again. Rest assured that we're looking at it. We're taking it seriously, and we're looking at ways that we can improve things to reduce the risk.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, I've got Councillor Gwyneth Ellis, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Dwi'n poeni o edrych ar yr adroddiad. Mae'r adroddiad yma yn canolbwyntio ar ddigwyddiad mis Ionawr 2021. Mae'n adael ni fan hyn efo cynnydd Llandrillo hefyd mewn perygl lifogydd, a mae pentre Llandrillo yn enwedig dan beryg cyson o lifogydd yn ôl map cyfoeth naturiol Cymru, ac yn wir mae yna rei o'r trigolion yn cymryd mesurau hunan i ddiogelu rhag llifogydd. Dwi'n teimlo fod yna beryg fod adroddiad fel hyn yn ychwanegu at y teimlad yma nad ydyn ni ddim yn flaenllaw yn sylw'r cyngor, ac na ddylid i ystyru peryglon llifogydd fan hyn oherwydd nad oedd na orlif fewn i dau yn mis Ionawr. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, presumably that's just a comment rather than a response from officers. I think generally, I'm going to add something here. I think generally we as a local authority, do take our flooding very, very seriously, and obviously it's of extreme concern, and I want to just thank officers and the staff for getting out and doing the things that they need to do, and particularly after the last storm. So just to add to that, I've got Bob Murray, and then after that I've got Councillor Martin Holland again. I'll come back to you in a minute, Martin, so I'll ask Councillor Bob Murray to come in, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a question to Wayne. During a meltdown, our MAGS was cancelled, and part of it was to do with the flood defences for Prestatyn. As I didn't fully understand it, I can't comment today. When we'll be having a meeting in lieu of the last MAGS being cancelled, because I have great concerns for the Barkby Beach end of Prestatyn. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, it didn't work out, did it, the last Prestatin Mag because of IT issues. But we, as officers, we're waiting for advice as to when that meeting will be rescheduled, and we can come back and give the presentation that we intended to give at that meeting, if that's okay.
Well, it's okay in that because you can't do much more. But no, I am really worried that we're getting well, not the bad end of everything, but we don't seem to be going forward, and you know, everywhere else seems to be getting the attention, and we seem to be getting left behind. And the longer until we have this meeting and we do understand what's going on, we can't make any contribution, which we do want to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob, just to come back, we are developing a scheme to protect over 2,000 properties in Prestatin. I appreciate your concerns about the coastline further east, but that's all in hand as well. You know, we take it seriously. We carry out regular monitoring exercises and carry out remedial work when it's required. We've spent several £100,000 of Welsh Government grants maintaining the Prestatin defences in the last 2 or 3 years. So we take it very, very seriously indeed.
Yeah, I do thank you for that, Wayne. But at the end of the day, I have residents there that ask me questions I can't answer. And every time I say, well, I'm sorry, this has happened, they're not taking that. You know, I understand you're talking with me now and you're telling me what's happening, but nothing is getting out to our residents. And that bothers me. But thank you for all the work you're doing. And I do understand the pressures you're under, you know, but I am under a pressure, as are my other fellow councillors in Prestatin. So thank you very much for all your help so far. But, you know, we do need to get these meetings going, and we do need to get things out to the public. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, I've got the last one I've got on my list is Councillor Martin Holland. Is there anything you're going to add, Martin, to what you've already said, or is it?
Well, actually, it's slightly different.
Oh, right, good. Okay, well, I'll let you speak then.
Yeah, my question really
I'll be kind to you.
Thank you. There's 2 points, one to NRW, one to the county. Prevention is better than the cure. I've attended a number of talks recently, one with the Willand Trust and the other the Rivers Trust, and both have been supporting the idea of planting trees upstream to absorb water and therefore help reduce the floods downstream. Can I ask what NRW's view is on that, especially in line with Welsh Government and Denbighshire's commitment to planting trees in relation to climate change? Is there a possibility of a double win-win situation here? And then the second point is, again, prevention is better than the cure. Denbighshire's current planning policy is that we cram as many properties as possible into every development. In most cases, they have no gardens and the fronts are covered in concrete for the cars. All this does is add to the runoff and the flow of water into, you know, especially in rural areas, into our streams and everything else. So is our policy right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Martin. It's do officers want to respond to that?
I think I'll make a start, if that's okay, Chair, regarding tree planting. So it's something that the county is looking at, not necessarily in connection with flood risk management, possibly more to do with carbon sequestration, but it is something going forward. There'll be a lot more trees planted in Denbighshire, come what may. In relation to flood risk, we've had £1 million worth of grant from Welsh Government to look at natural flood management across the county. And as part of those solutions, we'll no doubt be looking at planting trees, and we're working in conjunction with Natural Resources Wales in that regard. We've also got as was mentioned previously, the flood risk task and finish group. And one of the areas that group has looked at is natural flood management, including tree planting. There's also very recently been set up what is called a Clwyd Forum. It's very much in its infancy, but that involves the key stakeholders, so Welsh Water, Natural Resources Wales and Denbighshire County Council, and also the farming unions, looking at how the Clwyd catchment in particular operates holistically. So looking at environmental issues, the potential for tree planting. Eventually, when the time is right, that will no doubt, looking at other river forums that have been set up across the UK, that will start to, when it finds its feet, it will start to engage with local members, just to take things forward. So what I'm trying to say, I suppose, is that there's a lot of work taking place at the moment, looking at the benefits of planting trees, particularly in relation to flood risk.
Thanks very much for that, Wayne. Any other officers want to come in before we close the discussion, the debate? No.
Not from it. I think Wayne's covered that point pretty comprehensively, but NRW, we sort of manage a huge.
I think Ellie wants to...
Apologies.
Sorry,
I was just going to just support the messages there that Wayne had said, and NRW are contributing to the whole discussion about land management and tree planting, and there are opportunities with us managing Welsh Government's forestry estate to deliver benefits that come with tree planting.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Now I've got Ellie Chard, Councillor Ellie Chard. You're the last speaker.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
Tony Ward wants to come in as well at the end.
Fine.
Ellie.
My question is, we've got this huge flooding issue everywhere, and then we're saying about planting trees, but in our ward, trees have been knocked down. So what's the answer? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, and I know Welsh Government are going to give us grants and not everybody's going to be able to have a tree in the spring and all that. But what is the point of saying about the tree planting when we in fact have been knocking down trees, especially in our ward? Okay.
Thank you, Ellie. Okay, no response. Tony, do you want to come back in now? You've got your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just want, there was a request that somebody responded to Councillor Ellis's comments about the report not covering all parts of the county where there is flood risk. I mean, I suppose I just wanted to kind of initially just reiterate that the purpose of this report is very, very specific in relation to it's an investigation into areas where we experienced properties that flooded that weekend. So the purpose of the report isn't to kind of summarize flood risk across the county per se in a general sense. So that's why that isn't covered in the report. That isn't to say that isn't something that we should be looking to do in a different way. And we have been discussing developing an updated local flood risk management strategy for the county, which would be the kind of document that would consider those kind of issues, you know, the areas of the county that are subject to, you know, significant flood risk, and what steps we plan to take in order to try and reduce those in a more kind of general strategic sense. So not for this report, but it's a valid point that we will take on board. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tony, for that. I think it's been a very, very comprehensive discussion and debate this morning. So thanks very much. Thanks for officers for attending, and for Ryan as well from NRW. That's very much appreciated. There are two recommendations in this report. So Councillor Brian Jones, will you put forward the recommendations, please?
So the recommendation, order 3.1, that members consider the flood investigation report and provide feedback and comments, which you've all done, and thank you very much for that. And 3.2, the council seeks assurances from Natural Resources Wales that the recommendations identified in the Natural Resources Flood Investigation reports will be carried out. And personally, I've got every confidence that we will do that, because there is a better working relationship between Denbighshire and Natural Resources today. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Thank you. We need a seconder for that, please. Oh, Christine Martin's going to second. Right, I've got Mary waving his hand.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Dim ond I ofyn yn garedig o dan 3.2, sef yr ail, a oes modd cryfhau yr argymhelliad hwn trwy ychwanegu ar y diwedd a chyflwyno amserlen gwaith I Sir Ddinbych. Felly, da ni'n gofyn iddyn nhw ymateb, ond be di'r amserlen? Da ni'n misio storm arall na gwes I ddigwydd cyn i'r pethau yma gael ei gwneud. Diolch yn fawr.
I'll bring in Gary to talk about this issue. There is obviously a change of what's here in front of us. So please, Gary.
Oh, technically, what's being proposed is an amendment. If we were to follow the procedure rules, then somebody needs to second that amendment. You need to vote as to whether or not you wish to accept the amendment, and then you'd need to vote on the substantive resolution.
Okay, thanks very much. We've had a proposal from Mary to change this. Is there a second for that? No seconder. Okay. Back to the substantive recommendations and ask if all of those are in favour of recommendations 3.1 and 3.2. Okay. Is there anybody against? No? Okay. So that's gone forward. So thank you very much indeed. So we've got, hopefully, and I probably have given this the kiss of death, we've got agenda item 6 next, and I propose to do agenda item 7, and then we'll have a break, if that's okay, after those 2 items. So we'll go straight on to agenda item.
Mr. Chair, Gary, can I ask Gary if I need to declare an interest as chair of DLL? Gary?
Yes. You would need to declare an interest. It would be a personal interest only because you were appointed to the board by the council, and the same would apply to Councillor Hilditch-Roberts as well, as he's also a director of the...
Okay, herewith my interest is declared.
And herewith is mine.
And here's mine as well, Chair, Councillor P. Prendergast.
Thanks very much for that. So let's go straight on to agenda item 6, which is the appointment of Director of Denbighshire Leisure, and I will ask Gary to fill us in on all the legal minutiae, please.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, apologies to Councillor Prendergast. I didn't quite see him on the board in front of me without my glasses on, so I do apologise. Yes, the council created a company, Denbighshire Leisure Limited, and when it created that company, it also set a composition for the board of directors of the company, and that composition is set out at paragraph 4.2 of the report. I should also point members to the typo omission in recommendation 3.1. It should refer to paragraph 4.6. In any event, the composition of the board was set by council, and it's set out in paragraph 4.2, and at the top of that list was a on the board of directors for the occupant from time to time of the post of corporate director, economy and public realm with the council. At the time, the corporate director was Graham Bowes, who has subsequently become the council's chief executive, and the role of corporate director is currently vacant. At the same time that the company was created, the council also established a strategic governance board to manage the relationship between the company and the council and to make recommendations to decision-making bodies of the council in respect of any matters relating to the company. And the composition of that board was that it should be chaired by the chief executive. So Graham is now the chair of the strategic governance board and has resigned as a director of Denbighshire Leisure Limited in order to avoid the potential conflict of interest. The issue for the council, therefore, today, what we're seeking is an amendment to the composition of the board of directors so that the seat currently to be occupied by the corporate director, economy and public realm would be a position to be filled by a member of the senior leadership team of the council. And the reason for that is it gives the council flexibility in being able to make an appointment to the board of directors in situations like this where we have a vacant position. The Strategic Governance Board considered the recommendation that we should amend the composition of the board of directors on the 25th of October and agreed that it would recommend that to council. Subsequently then, a decision would be, well, if the composition of the board is to be changed to include a member of SLT, who should that person be? The company was consulted and said that they felt that perhaps it would be best for the board position to be left vacant at the current time, pending any review of the senior management restructure of the council and in particular the role of the corporate director. The CET were consulted, as were SLT and members of the Strategic Governance Board, and details of the consultation are set out in paragraph 8 of the report. Essentially, my advice to those bodies was that there is no need to delay appointing a director to the company's board. When the company was created, the council was keen that there be appropriate corporate governance in respect of the board, and that's achieved through the board of directors and the Strategic Governance Board. And the council has a role on the board of directors to fill, and that it should fill it. So CET was consulted and recommended that the appointment of director should be Nicola Stubbins. SLT agreed with that. We then consulted members of the Strategic Governance Board by email, and the overwhelming majority agreed with that. So the recommendation that's before council today is that the composition of the board be amended as per paragraph 4.6, and that if council approves that amendment, that council also then appoints Nicola Stubbins as a director of Denbighshire Leisure Limited. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Gary. Right, I've got Merrick, Councillor Merrick Lloyd-Davies, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch i Gary am y dadansoddiad, ond dwi dal ddim yn glir. Dwy swydd yn wag, un ar y bwr a llall sef swydd y prif weithredwr sydd gyda ni rwan. Dwi'm yn glir sut ydych chi'n llenwi'r ddwy ar wahân. Dwi'n gwybod bod chi wedi sôn am y cyfarwyddwr presennol i gymryd y sedd, ond be am y swydd wag sydd wedi cael ei gadael gan Graham Bowes? Pwy ydyn ni'n mynd i gael aelod newydd fel cyfarwyddwr? Dwi'm yn glir o gwbl o dan 4.6. Diolch yn fawr.
Wel, di'r adroddiad yma, mae'r adroddiad yma ond yn delio efo'r cwestiwn o bwrdd cyfarwyddwyr y cwmni ac y set wag ar bwrdd cyfarwyddwyr y cwmni, sef y set oedd yn cael ei llenwi gan y cyfarwyddwr corfforaethol. Mae'r person oedd y cyfarwyddwr corfforaethol rwan yn prif weithredwr, a mae fel y prif weithredwr mae'n cymryd gadair y Strategic Governance Board. Felly y cwestiwn i cyngor heddiw ydy pwy penodi i bwrdd cyfarwyddwyr y cwmni. Di'r cwestiwn ynglyn â'r swydd yn y cyngor o cyfarwyddwr corfforaethol ddim yn un i gael ei ddelio efo o dan yr adroddiad yma. Mae hynny'n cwestiwn hollol ar wahân.
Diolch yn fawr parchus Gadeirydd ac i Gary Williams am y dadansoddiad ardderchog yna. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Mary. I've got Councillor Bobby Feely, please.
I just wanted to clarify to members that it says in the report that let me just get it up before me. It said that the vacancy should remain, the post should remain vacant at this time. Well, the reason DLL board, after discussion, decided it should be left vacant at this time was because there is a vacancy for a corporate director because of Graham's promotion. We decided, and there are a couple of other vacancies coming up in SLT. Therefore, some sort of, re-looking at the structure is likely to take place. So we thought it would be best to wait until that has been done before our new board member is brought forward. As you can see, the economy and public realm is a lot different from communities. So we just wanted the chance to look at what skill sets would be sufficient for the board. So I just thought I would widen out what it says in the report to why it sounds a bit weird to say DLL said let's leave it vacant. It wasn't just let's leave it vacant, it was let's wait and see into the new year what any sort of restructuring might look like. But that was the only point. We made that point clearly to the strategic board, and their decision was to go ahead now, which we have accepted.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Feely, for that. So we've got this report in front of us now. We'll need a mover and a seconder, please. So if I can have...
I'm happy to move.
Councillor Barry Mellor is going to move. Seconder, please.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill. So thank you very much. So everybody in favour?
Yeah.
Good. Anybody against? Nobody? Was there anybody against? Or was it just a hand late going down? No. Okay. Good. Thank you. So that's been moved forward. Thank you very much indeed for that.
Sorry, Chair. My hand was historic.
I make no comment about that, Councillor Feely. Okay, we'll go on to agenda item 7, which is the role of young persons champion. I'm going to ask Gary to present this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't propose to go through the report in detail. We set out the history there in respect of the champions that we currently have for older people, homelessness, carers and learning disabilities. And the role descriptions for those positions are appended at appendices 1 to 4 to the report. Council received a notice of motion on the 7th of September that the council appoint a young persons champion covering all ages up to the age of 18. And council resolved that that would be referred to the Democratic Services Committee for further consideration and a report back. It went to Democratic Services Committee on the 5th of November. Members of the committee were supportive of the idea of a young persons champion. The only amendment that they suggested was that it should be to cover persons up to the age of 25, which is a widely recognised definition of young people. So the committee therefore agreed to recommend to council that there should be a role of a young persons champion, also that it should be carried out by a non-cabinet member, and that the definition of young person should include persons up to the age of 25 years. So that's effectively the report that's before you today. If members were minded to agree with the recommendation of the Democratic Services Committee, we'd bring a report to the next meeting of council for appointing a member to that position after being able to seek nominations from the various groups as to whether anybody was interested in it.
Thank you, Gary. I've got 2 hands raised. I've got Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis and I've got Councillor Paul Pennington. So Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis, please, first.
Wel, diolch eto, Mr Cadeirydd. Da chi di sôn am yr oed. Dwi'n methu cael hyd i'r oed yn yr argymhelliad. Dwi'n gwybod lle mae hwnnw, y 520 felly. Hefyd, pam young persons ei newid wedyn o dan rhif 6, 7 a 10 i young peoples. Ydy o ddim yn gwneud gwahaniaeth? Dwi'n siŵr bod Gary yn medru datod hwnna i mi. Diolch yn fawr.
Mater o drafftio di hynny, a dwi'n ymddiheurio os mae'r drafftio'n anghyson, ond nawn ni wneud yn siŵr fod y ddogfennau yn ymddangos fod o'n person ifanc, a nawn ni defnyddio young persons.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you for that, Gary. So, Councillor Pennington, please.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not against this per se, obviously. The thing that does concern me is that we have a number of champions, some of whom do some work I'm aware of, some of whom I've got no idea what they do. Should there be some element of where they should be reviewed annually and people can be appointed or apply for the position again, so we can assess whether they've actually done it effectively or not? And there's a lot of mention about they must work effectively to champion the cause of young people, etc., which is great if somebody does that. If somebody just takes the title and does nothing with it, then that should be reviewed later on. And I also think there should be some element whereby young people in the county are consulted on who they would like to be their champion, rather than us deciding. I mean, no disrespect to anybody here, but I'm pretty sure none of us are under 25. So it might be nice if some of them are involved. Okay, diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Pennington. I've got Councillor Glenn Swindler, please.
Yes, thanks, and thanks for sharing the definitions of what each champion does. Because a lot of these cross over, do the champions sort of meet at all to discuss things amongst themselves? You know, because a young person or a disabled person or carer, they quite often cross over.
Mr. Chairman, can I come in here?
Can.
Yeah, thank you. Diolch yn fawr, Mr. Cadeirydd, thank you. As carers champion for the last 12 years, I took on this role because I had a personal and professional interest in the caring, unpaid carers. Just a brief introduction about what I do. We do have a job description. There is a job description for carers champion. I attend meetings, a strategic group meeting. I attend various group meetings locally. I've also been down to the Assembly to meet with Carers Wales on a regular basis. I liaise with carers and I signpost them so that they can have support, physical support, emotional support, and financial support. There is a lot out there for carers. So that's a brief introduction of what I'm involved with. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dowes. Councillor Mary Clwyd Dowes, you've got your hand still up. You want to come back, or are you?
Os ga I ddod yn ôl, a diolch i cynghorydd Ann Davies am adroddiad yna, achos dwi'n sylwi yn yr atodiad 5, does e ddim gofyniad i'r un o'nyn nhw ateb yn ôl i bwyllgor, sef beth sy'n mynd ymlaen, fel sydd wedi cael ei grybwyll gan y cynghorydd cynt. Felly, oes modd deud bod nhw'n adrodd yn ôl i'r cyngor llawn bob 6 mis, neu nag yn y blaen, neu di hynny'n gofyn gormod?
So ni reit hapus, Mary, gwneud hynna. Diolch yn fawr. Mwy na hapus.
Am y swydd yma, parchus gadeirydd, os na ymateb?
I'll bring in Gary, please.
Na i ymateb yn Saesneg, mae'n bod chydig o cwestiynau. Sorry, as the report says, Council did make a decision some time ago that it wouldn't have any additional champions over and above those that are listed in paragraph 4.1. And it was agreed by council that the role of championing certain matters would be subsumed within the portfolios of the relevant lead members. But council did receive a notice of motion in September. They did refer it to the Democratic Services Committee, and that Democratic Services Committee has recommended back to council that they create the role of young persons champion in accordance with the role description. In terms of whether champions should be reporting back to any forum, well, that's a matter for council. And in respect to the question of whether the champions meet at all, there's no formal mechanism for champions to meet. It may be that if members want to confirm the role of young persons champion today, that we can take something to the Governance and Audit Committee in respect of mechanisms or processes by which champions would report on their activities. What I would say as well is that when the new council comes along post-May, we'll probably need to review the position relating to champions, given that there will be other potential constitutional mechanisms such as assistance to the executive, etc. And those are yet to be brought before members in terms of the requirements of the Local Government and Election Wales Act. But we will need to have constitutional arrangements to allow certain things to take place should members wish them to occur. So in respect of champions, as I said, there's no term limit in respect of champions. What we've done is we've appointed to the post of champion at the beginning of each council term. So we would be revisiting it again after May.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Gary. Right, I've got some other speakers now. I've got Councillor Emrys Wyn.
Ie, diolch yn fawr Cadeirydd. Dim ond un cwestiwn, sylw a cwestiwn. Ie, gefnogol i'r gael yr pen campwr bobl ifanc. Dwi'n bryderus chydig bach am yr gwellian sydd wedi cael i'w gynnig yn debyg mewn pwyllgor blaenorol bod ni'n gyfyngio i rywun sydd hyd at 5 ar 20 oed. Dim a 5 ar 20 yn oed ifanc iawn, dwi'n cydnabod hynny. Mae'n rhoi 20 mlynedd ar y ben hynny. Ac dwi'n cofio sut oedd bod yn 5 ar 20 oed, ond dwi hefyd yn cofio mod i'n teimlo'n ifanc iawn i fyny, as o'n i'n 10 ar 20 hefyd. Ydy'n bosib, os gwelwch yn dda, ystyried peidio gosod ffigwr penodol ar gyfer y pen campwr arbennig hwn. Efallai bydd y person gwerth chweil yn 6 ar 20 oed a nid yn 5 ar 20 oed. Efallai bydd well rhoi hyd at dydwch 10 ar 20, os ydych chi isio osgoi newid y decawd 9 ar 20. Dwi'n gwybod mae rhywun symud yr ffigwr ymlaen mae'r rhywun a mae'n wastad rhywun yn dod yn ffigwr nesaf i fyny. Ond dyddiau heddiw, dydy 10 ar 20 ddim yn her iawn.
Thank you, Emrys. I think generally whether we like it or not, for slightly older people, the definition of young persons for clearly definition purposes is up to 25. Just on a personal note in terms of this is if we start moving it to 26, 27, somebody's going to come up and say 28, 29, and before you know it, somebody of my age is going to be young. I'm going to be involved in young persons, and people are going to be looking after me. So I'm not sure, but I've got a couple.
I'm not sure where that definition came from, Chair. That's what I'm thinking. But as I say, you could miss out on an ideal person who's only going to be a year older. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
My understanding, Chair, is that the age of 25 is a United Nations definition, and it's one that's used by our youth services as well, and for other organisations such as the AELODAU, etc.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation, and just sits comfortably with me, but there we are.
Okay. Councillor Arwell Roberts, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn eto. Mi dwi'n bencampwr wrth gwrs I personau efo anableddau dros y sir. Dwi wedi gweithio'n galed yn ddistaw yn y cefndir. Dwi'n ymbrolio beth dwi wedi gwneud ac yn y blaen, ond dwi yn cyfarfod efo yr asiant cynnig yn aml, ac hefyd dwi wedi bod wrthi hefo'r advocacy dan arweiniad Helga a dwi wedi cael cyfarfodydd hefo nhw ar Zoom a Teams ac yn y blaen. Yn ddiweddar mi ges I Ben Wilcox-Jones sydd wedi siarad hefo nhw ynghylch y problemau pobl o anableddau yn gael wrth symud o gwmpas ar hyd y strydoedd. A hefyd dwi wedi cael Peter Daniels I mewn ar ran trafnidiaeth, a maen nhw'n cael problemau mawr ar y buses ac yn y blaen. I ddod nôl ar yr oed 5 mlynedd ar hugain, mae yr Erydd yr Eglwys yn gadael I bobl sydd yn 5 ar hugain oed I fod yn aelodau, mae'r ffermwyr ifanc yn gadael, dwi'n meddwl, 5 mlynedd ar hugain, ond mae yna rei sydd yn dal yn aelodau yna I arwain. Felly, dwi'n meddwl falle bod Emrys yn iawn yn hyn o beth, mi fedrwn ni I fyny falle I 30, ond dwi'n mater ormodol y bwys, ond mae hynna yn rhyw fath o syniad be maen nhw'n wneud yn ddod I fewn I asiantau neu mudiadau fel yr Urdd a ffermwyr ifanc hefyd. Ond dwi yn mwynhau fod yn bencampwr y pobl efo anableddau ac unrhyw bryd ydych chi isio adroddiad gyda I, dwi ar gael unrhyw bryd. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi.
Thank you, Arwell. I've got two more speakers, Councillor Ellie Chard and then Councillor Brian Blakely, please. So Ellie, please.
Yeah, just to say, I'm the champion for the older people, and I was quite shocked when I first went on the committee. Their age group goes from 55, so maybe we should have a 25 to 55 for whoever. But I'm just going to tell everybody, I've just written down, there's lots and lots of committees I go on. The Aging Well, which is organised by Denbighshire, Dementia Friendly, plus lots and lots of meetings with Age Connect. Plus, before COVID, I used to go along to sing-along events in the cinema, in the church in Water Street, which hasn't reopened after COVID. And I mean, there's too many to mention, too many. But I do know our staff in social services have worked damn hard. And I know for a start, by attending these meetings, the feedback I get from all these staff, some of these meetings, we have staff from CYHOEDD, and so it is a very good strand to be on, and I have learned a lot, and I would be willing. So if I was to continue, I would give a report every 6 months. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ellie. I think there's no doubt about it. The people on these champions do work very hard. There's a lot to do. So, Councillor Brian Blakely, please. You're on mute, Brian.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'll start again. I'm just concerned with what Paul said at the beginning when he referred to maybe some of these champions don't know what they're doing. Can I assure Paul that I do know what I'm doing? And I've been working with our homeless team who've been doing a fantastic job with our homeless. I've met with quite a few people that are about to become homeless. And I have contacted our homeless team on many occasions, and I'm sure they can confirm that. To do my job, my part as homeless champion here in Denbighshire, and I've come 1 or 2 times I've referred to it as RIL, but of course it's not, it's Denbighshire. And also I attend the housing and homeless scrutiny, which we've got one tomorrow. So I can assure you, Paul, that I do my part. I do play it pretty well, I feel. Well, I think so anyway. And just to lay it down yet, that I feel that we're doing a fantastic job here in Denbighshire. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Councillor Hugh Evans, leader, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to move the debate on and suggest that I'm happy to move the motion and ask if, with Gary's accordance, that we consider the role of champions at the next council in light of the emerging governance arrangements from the Local Government Act. So I'm happy to move the motion, Chair.
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thank you both. We've had a proposal and a second. I'll ask Gary to read out the recommendation, and we'll vote on it.
That council approves the creation of the role of young persons champion in accordance with the role description set out in Appendix 5.
Okay, are we all in favour? Any against?
Yes.
Who was yes? Okay. Any others against?
Someone's still got their hand up.
Merrick, is that you? Oh, right, sorry. A bit confusing it. Okay, so it's been passed and that will go forward. Okay, thank you, members. What we propose to do now is have a break of probably 15 minutes. It'll give us a chance in the chamber to get warm. Anyway, I think we're going to have a run round the block. So we'll see you at what time is it now? So if see you at past, that'd be okay. Also,
wonderful.
Thank you. We'll go back to what we discussed earlier. We're on webcast and so on. So let's see how we go with this. Okay, it's agenda item number 8, which is the proposal for members to adopt new ways of work. And I'm going to ask Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill to introduce this, please. Julian, if you would, thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr. Cadeirydd. I'm introducing this, but this is a joint effort with the leader, so I'll name check him in with regards to this in terms of the paper, and also we've got Gary and Alan here for any technical questions that you may have. This obviously is a paper designed to look at the new ways of working for members post-election, essentially. Now, we established a member task and finish group, which was initially chaired under the aegis of Richard, and then in his absence, Hugh and I took that role on between us. And there were 2 work streams which were being developed, one in relation to arrangements for meetings and one in terms of ICT provision for members going forward. So if I can touch on each in turn. In terms of meetings, I'm not going to go through all the history that's in the report and we've all lived through, but essentially by sort of this time last year, we were in a position where we were able to run a full suite of bilingual virtual meetings, which were webcast. The new Local Government Act has 2 main provisions with regards to meetings. One, that all public meetings need to be shown live and essentially archived should anybody want to wish to watch it at a later date. And the second one is that the council must make arrangements to ensure that anyone who wishes to attend a meeting remotely has the facility to be able to do so. In terms of meetings, obviously we have a very wide range of meetings that we all participate in. We split those into 3 main categories. The first one is the formal public-facing meetings. So that's obviously like today, cabinet, scrutiny, and the like, planning, licensing, all of those. The second category were those meetings that we weren't directly in charge of, They were run by external partners or regional meetings or something along those lines. And the third were primarily internal only meetings to which public and press would not, would not be invited. They're internal business meetings essentially. The report details, I don't want to go into too much detail, I'll just highlight a few bullet points in terms of obviously some of the benefits of meeting remotely. There's obviously an improved position with regards to the environment if we're all not driving all over the place. And that has a knock-on effect as well in terms of a financial position, small though it may be in the greater scheme of things in terms of reduction in travel expenses. I think most people feel that it's better able for time management. And then finally, in terms of diversity, it potentially opens up for people, for a wider range of people to put their names forward potentially to stand. So in terms of the proposals which went to the task and finish group and then went to Democratic Services a few weeks ago and were unanimously recommended both to be brought to council. In terms of those first category of formal meetings, it would be intended that those would be held in a hybrid manner. For the second category, where we're working with partners, obviously it's not within our control to demand it, but we would encourage those partners that they would primarily remain virtual in nature. And for the third category, the internal business meetings, project boards, those sorts of things, that those would remain as being held on a remote basis with the usual proviso that by exception, if the need arose, we could always carry out one of those meetings in another fashion. I should point out, obviously, in terms of just repeating back to the Local Government Act, essentially the only two options open to the council are hybrid meetings or fully virtual meetings, in line with that criteria that I went through earlier. In terms of meetings as well, because it's obviously a different way of working, even to the one that we're using at the moment. We've also developed a draft protocol, which you'll see attached to your packs. And just a few, there's a number of items in there, but just a few I wish to highlight to you. Again, no comment about any individual current chair, but it's a different way of working, so we'll need to ensure that chairs are up to speed with dealing with meetings perhaps where there's half in the room and half on a screen. There's also, it's very important that the parity of value given to those members, regardless of how they choose to attend a meeting. So it's not better to attend in person, or it's not better to attend remotely. They're just two equally valid ways of attending a meeting. And the corollary to that one is essentially that we as members also have to accept that officers will be working under the same system, and therefore they may well be continuing to present reports remotely, and obviously should not be thought any the less for doing so. There's a number of other items there which I'm sure you've read through in terms of things like letting Democratic Services know how you are proposing to attend, so they'll know if there's an issue. If somebody said they're going to attend remotely and they're not there, they will know that there might be somebody trying to get in that's failing, or the vice versa. Finally, if I come to the ICT provision, we've reviewed what would be likely to be made available to members after the elections. And the recommendation would be that the main basis would be a laptop combined with a large screen mobile phone, obviously with email and calendar capability functions, and that would be able to be, because I know this has been raised in some of our meetings before now, would be capable of being paired on a 4G or 5G signal to connect with the laptop if you're out and about in the wild somewhere. But it's not a one-size-fits-all scenario. There will be an individual recognition that we're all different and we've all got different setups at home or wherever. And if individuals need a separate monitor, that can be arranged, or if people aren't comfortable or able to use the trackpad on a laptop, wireless keyboards and mice can be provided for. So it's a horses for courses scenario, but that's what the basis would be. And my final point, I think, is that there would be an expectation that where available, members would take up the best possible broadband in that particular area. We fully accept that some areas geographically are always going to be an issue, and for those members, if they are genuine and all other avenues have been exhausted, obviously they would be able to attend the meeting in person if it's a remote meeting, or there'll be a number of other hubs which would be available for a secure connection to the meeting. And I do stress the secure, because whilst we want to be as flexible as possible, it's probably not a great idea if we're talking about part 2 items in the middle of a crowded Costa. Even if they have got good connection there. And I suppose I should add, other coffee brands are available. So I think as a general introduction, I think that's probably all I wanted to say. I don't know whether Gary, from a Democratic Services point of view, or Alan from an ICT point of view, or Hugh wanted to add anything to that I've missed out or got wrong. And then obviously we can go to questions at that point, Chair.
Yeah, Chair, if I could add to that, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Sorry, Hugh, just thank you, Julian, for that. Just apologise, Hugh, for not including you in the introduction. Nothing personal, but yes, if you want to come in and add to it, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Julian, for taking the stronger lead on this. Hang on, I'll put the screen off. The stronger lead on this. It's a really important topic, and probably it's one of the, while COVID has been a disaster for us all, we have to hook onto the benefits that it has provided, and this is one of them. And we need to make the most of what we can do or comes out of COVID. And it's important that we do not go back to the way we were before, where we turned up in all the meetings. That said, it's really important also that we do have a position before the beginning of next council, so that new members and those who return have a clear pattern as to how they will deal with the business of the council. We've just, the present state of play, as Julian alluded to, it's either remote or hybrid now, and we probably want to try and promote a bit more of the hybrid working, definitely in the next council. And if the opportunities arise in this council, we take advantage of that. But the latest COVID outbreak with this new variant has also probably put us back a bit in terms of having our intention of going a certain way, because we have to be safe at all times. And I think one thing that Julian said there, which is really important, Chair, is the parity of value. And it's important that we don't put pressure on members to feel that they have to come to the chamber or they have to attend a meeting personally because they might not feel ready for it or don't want to create problems for members of the families, etc. but this parity of value is important. The fact that they will not be at a meeting does not mean that they don't participate with equal context as people who are there. And that's something that we have to hold on to really importantly. But thank to Julian for leading on this and to Democratic Services for coming up with his reports. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah.
Thank you, Leader. Before I go on to members, does any of the officers want to add anything else?
Nothing to add from me, Chair. I think the members have set it out very clearly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That's great. We'll go straight on to elected members. I've got Mary, please, Mary Lloyd Davies.
Diolch eto, parchus gadeirydd. Os ga I fynd drwy ambell i beth, os gwelwch o dda. Tudalen 101, adroddiad 3, rhif 3, mae'n cyfeirio at atodiad 1, ond os na ddim atodiad 1 i'w weld, ond yn tudalen 115, sef rhestr y pwyllgorau. Ydy hwnna heb i'w gywiro, neu beth sydd wedi digwydd y fanna. Trwy grŵp tasg a gorffen Hydref 19, a ple mae adran 2, da chi'n cyfeirio ato fo yn yr argymhellion 3.2. Yr ail beth, ceir adroddiad y grŵp yn uniau Saesneg. A yw hwn y ffordd newydd o weithio? Eitem 3, o dan 492, tudalen 113, disgwylir i aelodau gael mynediad i fand eang o ansawdd da. A yw hwn yw y gweithlu yn yr un safle? Os y methu, beth yw'r gosb am beidio cael band eang o ansawdd da? Rhif 4 gyna i, 494, tudalen 113 eto, cyfeiriad at ffôn poced. Sut gall aelod ddarllen man ysgrifen ar y ffôn am fod y gliniadur yn agored gyda lluniau aelodau'r cyfarfod? I gael gweld yr agenda, angen defnyddio'r ffôn wrth reswm. A 5, ceir 2 atodiad 2, tudalen 116 a tudalen 119. Ar ola, dyli ddim bod angen gofyn i gael bod yn rhan o bwyllgor dros y gwifrau, dyddiadur agored i bawb, neu y rhai sydd yn dymuno cael oll o'r cyfarfodydd heb ofyn am bob un yn unigol, fel da ni'n garfod gwneud ŵan. Diolch yn fawr, parchus gadeirydd.
Thank you, Mary. I'll ask Gary to come in the first.
Do you want me to respond to those now, or do you want more questions, Chair?
Julian, if you want to respond, and then Gary wants to come in, I think, possibly, and then.
Okay. If I can partially respond, I'm sure Gary will pick up anything that that I miss. In your first question, Merrick, about Appendix 1. Appendix 1 to the council report for today is the entire Democratic Services report, which itself contained 3 appendices. So that's why you would answer this, one of your later questions about why there were 2 Appendix 2s.
It's not marked that way, you see, that's the problem.
Because the whole report is Appendix 1, including the 3 appendices that went to Democratic Services. So that picks up those 2 points. In terms of broadband, and again, officers might want to pick up on this. What we're not saying is that the members have to have good quality broadband. If you geographically don't have it, you can't have it. It's as simple as that. What we're actually saying is there would be an expectation that 90% greater than 90% of Denbighshire has the availability of full fibre broadband. And if you've got the availability of it available to you, you should be taking that availability up. That's essentially what we're saying. I can't speak for what would happen to officers. This paper only refers to members, but I'm sure Gary will pick up on that side of things. In terms of your question about mobile phones, as I say, this is where it really comes down to horses for courses. For instance, today I have you all on my council laptop in front of me, and I've got my papers on my own private laptop on this side here. So I wouldn't necessarily need a second screen to be able to do that. Other people might not have that facility, which is why potentially you can have a second monitor which you can attach. So you could have the paper put on one and the screen for meetings. So as I say, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, because we're all individually different. I've got a nice desk here. I can put two laptops on side by side. Not everybody can do that. I appreciate. And sorry, you did have another. Oh yes, I think I probably to Gary for the one about the translation. So I'll hand over to Gary for anything I've missed.
Yes, thank you, Julian. In respect to the report to the Task and Finish group being in English only, it's an internal meeting, it's not a public meeting, so we only translate documents for public meetings. In respect of the issue around the unavailability of broadband for offices, well, clearly the offices and council buildings generally will have appropriate connectivity, and that it would be possible for officers or indeed members to be able to attend meetings from a council building that's closest to them if it was more convenient, rather than having to come into this building.
Okay.
Cwestiwn ola? Ynglŷn â cofrestru I gael mynd ar bwyllgor, nid o'n fwy cyffredinol ac ddim bob un tro yn garfod gofyn?
Na I siarad gyda'r gwasanaeth ynglŷn â'r materion ymarferol o sut mae hynny'n gweithio. Da ni'n neud yn glir fod pob cyfarfod yn dyddiadur pob aelod. Da ni jyst yn ofyn ar y funud, os da chi isio ymuno ar gyfarfod, os fedrwch chi jyst adael I ni wybod, a wedyn nawn ni anfon y link. Da ni'n anfon y link I pwy bynnag sydd isio ymuno a unrhyw gyfarfod, a fydden ni'n cario ymlaen wneud hynny. Ond mae'n mwy anodd rheoli ac yn gwybod pwy sy'n trio cysylltu a gyfarfod neu trio dod I fewn, os da ni'n gwybod fod nhw'n pwrpasol isio ymuno ar gyfarfod. So dyna'r pwrpas I wneud yn siŵr fod da ni'n gwybod pwy sydd isio dod i'r gyfarfod, ac wneud yn siŵr fedrwn ni wyrach cysylltu gyda nhw os maen nhw'n cael trafferthion I gysylltu.
Os ga I ddod I mewn, a diolch I Gary am yr ateb, ond y broblem ydy, os ydy rhywun heb gofrestru, does dim posib wedyn dod I mewn, heb ofyn I gynghorydd arall, be di'r rhif cyfrinachol?
Wel, nawn ni edrych ar y cwestiwn, ond I fod yn deg, ond e-bost gyflym I unrhyw un yn y tîm democrataidd, a fedrwn ni jyst anfon y link yn syth yn ôl I unrhyw aelod sydd eisiau. A da ni wedi wneud hynny ar weithiau ben bore diwrnod gyfarfod, mae rhywun di e-bostio fewn, jyst wrach tua hanner awr cyn y gyfarfod I ddweud, o, dwi eisiau ymuno, a da ni jyst I anfon y link iddyn nhw.
Diolch, Gary. Diolch, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Mary. Councillor Graham Timms, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr. Cadeirydd. Just three very quick points. The first one is that on the Appendix 2, which is the hybrid meetings protocol, and I feel sorry that I didn't bring this up at Democratic Services, but there are 4 mentions of chairman. Should that be chair rather than chairman? the second point is about faces on the screen. I personally think it's very, very important that everyone shows their face throughout the meeting, if at all possible. And some, on rare occasions, people should be able to switch off if their voice isn't coming over clearly. But I really think that the public should be entitled to see our faces during the whole meeting. And the third one, would it be possible for the council to provide a background for us so that we can have an appropriate DCC branded background? Diolch yn fawr.
Certainly, many apologies in respect of the use of the word chairman rather than chair. That's an oversight and we'll correct that. In respect of the issue around a background, then I'm sure we can make an appropriate corporate background available to members should they wish to have one. And in respect of the picture, I think I agree that for the public who are viewing meetings, it's important that I think the protocol does refer to appropriate names being on so that members of the public can easily identify who the elected members are and distinguish them from officers. And also that it's much better for the public and for those attending the meeting to be able to engage with others if their pictures are present. Clearly, there are times such as this morning when the connectivity issue means that we can't get voice and picture at the same time for some people, depending on their connection, and that it would be appropriate to switch cameras off then. But I think for the majority of the time, cameras should be on just as well, so that the public know that those who are in attendance are actually in attendance.
Okay, thanks, Gary, for that.
Chair,
sorry.
Sorry, could I just apologise? My camera has not been working all morning. It's through no fault of mine, but it's not been working. Thank you.
Thank you. That's fine. Okay. Thank you very much. Can I call on Councillor Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones, please?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. My problem is you're saying about in the new council probably having just the use of laptops and mobiles, which I think is a bit of a waste of money. But I want to say I've had lots and lots of problems with the laptop, gaining access to it. And, you know, everybody in IT will be getting a Christmas card from me because I've been onto them that many times. And I've got to say, they really, really are very helpful and patient. But if I can't understand why I can access everything I want to with just my index finger on my iPad, and everything is. But to gain access onto my laptop, I have to jump through hoops with different codes, most of which seem to always be failing and I can't get in. So I resort back to my iPad, which is as simple as anything. And I think, to be fair, during the last nearly 16 months, these iPads that we were issued have been a godsend. They have to me. I find them simple to use, easy to put in my bag and even have meetings in the car. So I don't see the need to be getting all new equipment when we've already got stuff. But I do want to ask IT why, when they tell me, oh, we have to have all the codes and everything in, because of confidentiality and because of it being difficult for other people to gain access. And yet with the iPad, it's just fingerprint recognition. So why can't we have that on the laptops? And why can't we just have a simple code, a password like we have for our iPads? Why do we have to jump through hoops? Why do we have to do that? There's no difference. We're gaining the same information, whether you use your iPad or your laptop. And yet it's can be a real bone of contention with me that it takes forever to get in, if indeed I ever get in. And in the main, IT have to get me in. That is a pain. Why can't we look at that? If we are going to have these laptops, why can we not have a more simple access with just a simple password.
Well said, Jeanette. Well said.
Thanks, Jeanette. Alan, do you want to come in or answer
Yeah,
that?
certainly, Chair. Happy to come
sorry,
in there.
Sorry, Chair. Just before Alan comes in, could I
Okay.
just pick up the part of the reason to assist Jeanette? You obviously touched on the fact that the proposal would be that we would no longer have iPads going forward. So therefore, I know a lot of people will use their laptop essentially as a desktop replacement. They're not going to be carrying the laptop necessarily around the house with them or having it available. So in order that you would be able to have ready access to emails and your calendar, that's why the intention would be to provide members with a mobile of good size screen, so even people with failing eyesight like myself would be able to see it, hopefully. I mean, part of the issue, and I'm sure Alan will touch on this in more detail because I'm far from the expert with the iPad, is the level of support is not able to be provided for an iPad that's actually able to be provided for our laptops. I'm sure we've all at one time or another had ICT dial-in to sort out a problem on our laptop remotely. You can't, that functionality isn't there with an iPad. Already, I believe officers have actually agreed that from a similar time point, they will withdraw their iPads as well. So essentially, were members to retain them, there would only be 48 iPads in circulation, and those staff in ICT don't necessarily, because they're not using it as frequently, would have the ability to support issues with the iPad going forward. So I think that's probably what I wanted to say, but I'm sure Alan will say it in a much better and more succinct way than I just have.
I'm not sure about that, Julian. Julian's right, though. The iPads have been a really great thing for us in the council as a kind of a bridge from the world where we didn't use digital means to where we've all got very used to it. And I think because they're simple, they've been really effective like that. And I think it's helped a lot of people make that move from the old paper system to much more sophisticated way of working. And you can see the impact of that. I mean, I'm seeing colleagues and members around the room who wouldn't have been seen dead with a laptop or anything digital at all in the past, but are now completely comfortable with it. I think he knows who I'm talking about. But so I think everybody's moved on a lot, but iPads are just not really the right thing for us. We can't. They're aside from our formal systems. We can't really control them. I know Jeanette remembers them fondly, but if you do remember, every time we get an iOS update, there's chaos around the council. Nobody can connect to anything. Everything goes haywire, and it takes 2 weeks to sort out because our two systems don't really sync very well. Whereas with the laptops, we can fix them remotely from the office. They're all the same. We know how to operate them, and they've got a lot more capability. Ultimately, now I accept that what Jeanette's saying. It's iPads are very simple, and there is a bit of a learning task for everybody in getting used to something which is slightly different. But as officers, we've done the same thing. We know that there's a lot more capability there. You can get a lot more things on the screen. It's easier to manipulate documents at the same time. You can do more things. And jumping through hoops is just because the laptops have got better connectivity to our systems, so they need to be secure, whereas the iPads are not really secure. We've tolerated it for the process of getting members online, but they're not really the solution going forward in terms of having a watertight system. I know most of you have got to learn and perhaps to love. You'll come to love your laptops in time, I think. And we wanted to give you, in terms of Jeanette's point about security, the simpler we can make that, the better. I'd absolutely agree with you there. And we've made a bit of progress with having single sign-on and improving things that we can certainly go further, and we'll certainly try and go further to make it as simple as possible to sign on. But ultimately, it's not that hard when you get used to it, I think. The mobile phone is because we recognize that whilst I see I don't see any of you sitting in your cars at the moment, and most of you seem to be at home where a laptop would work fine. I recognize that some people do connect into meetings, check their emails on the move and so on. And so we wanted it to be possible for people to do that. And hence the mobile phone, one that you can read, so that you can read your emails, you can send emails. You could potentially read papers, but I think that would be a bit of a struggle. But you could certainly, you could do a lot with it. And as Julian says, you can use them to connect your laptop to the outside world wherever you are. So we think by bringing the two things together, you'd be fully kitted out as members. I do understand it takes a little bit of learning something different, but ultimately it'll be really worth it. It'll be easier to support you. It'll be more effective as a system, and it'll help us going forward. In terms of training and support, because we recognize some people are further along this path than others, we'll be trying to work with everybody as individuals. Some people are completely comfortable with this technology. Some people have got a bit more learning or would want a big screen, or as Julian said, would want a keyboard. We can work with all that because that's how officers work. I'm sitting in my house now. I've got my laptop, but I've just got one big screen, and I've got Zoom on one side. I've got the papers on the other. Can see them all at once, and I've got a keyboard in front of me. It's dead simple, and ultimately a lot easier than even having two devices like Julian's talking to. There's really no need. So I think going forward we can make it better. We do understand it's a bit uncomfortable for people who've got very used to iPads and perhaps less used to laptops, but I'd urge you to go with it and help you work through what will be a significant change, but it ultimately better for everybody, I think. So I hope that's answered your questions, Jeanette. Sorry. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alan. It sounds very reassuring, actually. Councillor Emrys Swyn, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Dim ond yn sydyn iawn, dilyn ail gwestiwn y cynghorydd Graham Timms mewn gwirionedd ynglyn â dangos wynebau yn ystod y cyfarfod. Rhaid i fod yn onest, mae gen i bolisi os ydw i ar fi'n cael llwng HAMDDEN ag ati, dwi'n dueddol o droi'n hamra i ffwrdd, chi'n siŵr gweld yn yfed yn hen ac yn bitaf yn host, ond dywyr i'n gwneud hynny beth bynnag, ond mae'n gallu digwydd. Ond gai ofyn yn gyffredinol, oes na rhyw bosib cael yn y protocol i ni fedru cael cadarnhau pe ma' 'na gamera i ffwrdd y person dal yn bresennol yn y cyfarfod. Bysa fo'n gallu creu problem, enghraifft, efo'r pwyllgor cynllunio. Dydwch bod 'na drafodaeth ar gais cynllunio arbennig a bod y person dim yno ar gyfer rhan neu cyfan o'r cais cynllunio hwnnw. Mae rhaid i'r person hwnnw wedyn, neu honno, benderfynu os ydyn nhw'n gallu pleidleisio ar y cais cynllunio arbennig hwnnw. Ac mae baen rhywun yn edrych i mewn i pethau fanwl efallai fysa ni'n gallu cael yn barnu bod ni wedi heb glywed y drafodaeth yn llawn, neu bod ni'n unigolion heb glywed y drafodaeth yn llawn a wedi gwneud penderfyniad naill ffordd neu llall. Gofyn dwi, oes yna ffordd dechnegol lle pan dwi'n trio, os dwi'n penderfynu troi fy nghamera i ffwrdd am bod bynnag reswm, bod yna rhyw arwydd bach yn dangos, ia, mae wedi troi gamera, ond mae o dal yno, ar wahân i'n enw ar y gwylod. Un cwestiwn arall, sori, un cwestiwn arall. Mae'n debyg y bydd 47 laptop nag iPad yn mynd ar ofyn ar ddiwedd y tymor hwn o'r cyngor. Dwi'n gobeithio'n arw y bydd y sir yn gweld yn glir i wedi glanhau y rhain o'r holl gynnwys sydd arnyn nhw rwan ac i'w cyflwyno nhw i bobl, efallai yn ysgolion ag ati, sydd ddim yn gallu cael iPad i bob disgybl, neu bod yna bosib i ni gael stoc o iPad wrth gefn i gynorthwyo bobl sydd ddim yn gallu cael gafel aryn ar gyfer addysg yn y dyfodol. Diolch yn fawr.
you want me to deal with the protocol issue?
Yep,
Chair?
please, yeah.
Well, the first comment I would make in respect of the use of cameras is that we have to remember that when we are conducting formal public meetings such as the Planning Committee, then those meetings, although we're attending from a different place, they are still formal public meetings of council. So, you know, I would make the flippant remark probably that people wouldn't be eating toast if they were sat in the chamber at Planning Committee, and therefore there's no need for them to switch their camera off in order to eat anything during a formal public meeting, unless of course there's a medical need for that sort of thing. The protocol does at 3.11 talk about cameras, and it does say that for the public to be able to see what's going on and for the public to have confidence that members are in attendance, that cameras should be on unless there are technical difficulties when members are speaking or making a contribution. In terms of whether or not the system is able to acknowledge attendance with the camera off, I have to say, as a member of a profession that's slowly releasing the quill pen, I'm probably not best placed to comment on that. What I would say though is that it's probably unlikely, because the system acknowledges that you have attended the that you're at the meeting, but it doesn't know whether you're sat at the laptop or not, other than if your camera is on. Alan may be able to assist more with the technology, but that would be my view. And at these formal public meetings, then I do think that we should be as visible as possible so that the public know who's doing their business.
Thank you, Gary. Do you want to come back on that, Alan?
Yes, just quickly, I think Gary's right. I don't think there's any way, if you're connected in, but you haven't got the camera on, that we would know that. But I guess it's a bit like, you know, you could be sat there not paying attention. You know, we might not know that either if you're not listening. So I'm not sure there's anything technical we can do about that. On the point about iPads, they are getting to the end of their life, which is another reason for reconsidering their future at this point. But I think if it is at all possible to give them a new life in schools, even if it's a short one, I think that's a really good idea. So we'll certainly look at that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alan. I'll bring Gary
Chair.
back in as well, please.
Sorry, I should have said, Chair, that in respect of things like planning, when people may question whether somebody's heard the whole of the debate, etc. I think there are two issues. Number one, that's a reason why the cameras should be on. But also we would need to obviously take members at their word that they were there and that they'd been able to listen to the whole of the debate. And I think that certainly in the protocol, we do say that, for example, the chat function should only really be used for things like having difficulty with messages relating to connectivity, etc., or explaining why perhaps a camera's had to go off, and that the chat function shouldn't be used for contributing to the debate or making comments about that which is being discussed. I hope that helps.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Chair, can I just come back very quickly? In terms of the, oh dear me, yeah. My example of it, slurping my tea or eating my toast is meant to be slightly tongue-in-cheek, but as I say, I do have my glass of water here for that purpose. But it's in a planning committee, for example, if anybody gets up and leaves a meeting, it can be seen that's what's happened and it's understood. It may not be quite as about. I understand that maybe the technology won't allow us, and there has to be 100% trust on this. I understand all that, and I'm hoping that is, you know, we have all noble councillors, and I'm sure that we understand that as well. That, you know, we wouldn't attempt to vote on a matter which we haven't fully understood, possibly, or haven't fully partaken in the actual lead up to that decision.
Okay, I'll bring Gary back in, please.
No, as I said, I don't think the technology can do it. Perhaps what we could say to members is that if you are going to leave the meeting for a reason, there may be a reason why you have to leave the room, in the same way that you might have to leave the chamber, that you just, through the chat function, inform the chair that you're having to leave, but then say when you're back.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Gary, for that. Councillor Glenn Swingler, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't want to get into this too much, but I didn't take up my laptop. I've not needed it. I work very well on the iPad and on my mobile phone. So I've not needed the laptop. I didn't take it on because I felt that was an unnecessary cost. But virtual meetings, I totally agree with. We've been doing this now for what, 20, 21 months. We had problems in the beginning and missed meetings, but we're learning and improving all the time. Having the virtual meetings, as Julian very well pointed out at the beginning, is good for the environment. We don't have those, you know, the emissions from traveling. It's health. Yeah, we're not all mixing in very difficult times, but you know, other people might have good reason not to want to go to an in-person meeting because of health concerns. Diversity, you know, we need younger people, perhaps young families who can come to these meetings. They're not going to have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to travel to Rithing for a 9 o'clock meeting, you know, and all this kind of thing. Cost, it's obviously cheaper to provide laptops and iPads than it is to run these massive offices that we have that are being, you know, improvements in technology all the time. We're living in new times. The technology is improving all the time. I think we still have an issue over voting. Even on Zoom, you know, you can set up voting things on Zoom, but we still don't use that. You know, when it comes to the office stuff, that's not what we're talking about today. But you know, so you know, I think this is working well. It works better and better each time, and I don't think that we need to have the, you know, whatever sort of meeting it is, we can do it virtually.
Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for that. Yes, even I have moved from perhaps 10, 15 years ago from being a Luddite when it comes to computers to actually being, in the words of my wife, quite good at it now. So there we are. Right, okay. Martin Holland, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say I'm more than happy with the proposed new ways of working. I think it gives us the flexibility that we all need. And yes, as was mentioned earlier, diversity, enable people to actually join meetings at any time during the day from a remote location, even from their work. So say to people taking time off work, etc., perhaps just having an hour here or there. So I'm all in favour of that. Can I just say that I felt that the iPads were fantastic. They were so easy to use, very practical, and I must admit, you know, as a technophobe, I found them of great use. So I'm sorry to see them going. Just coming on to the question then of the mobile phone. I personally, whenever I give my phone number out, I always give my home number out. It works both ways because it can take messages if I'm not in, but it also means that my mobile phone is mine. And if I'm on you know, going away on holiday somewhere and I'm in a restaurant and then somebody rings me and says, Martin, can I just have a word with you about that pothole at the end of my street? At least I don't get those calls. I'm assuming that this mobile phone will be a proper phone and therefore will accept calls, so councillors can use them as a council mobile phone for receiving calls, etc. But how are we going to monitor that usage, and who pays the bill at the end of the day? Obviously, you know, if councillors use them for private calls, then, you know, that doesn't happen at the moment. The iPad doesn't allow private calls. And so if you're using a mobile phone, you know, you're using your own. So just that question, how is that going to work? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Martin. Before I go to Merrick for the last speaker on this, oh, there's one other I can see now. Do you want to come in, Gary? Sure.
Well, I'm sure Alan can answer the issue about the funds, but I'm sure the funds will be able to make calls. In terms of tracking the usage of them, well, the Code of Conduct does say that members should use the council only for council business. So I'm sure that members are only using iPads for council business and not for anything else. and that would be the same in respect of telephones. But Alan, sorry, is probably best placed to deal with issues around how that monitoring would take place.
Yeah, if I can come in then, Chair. That is the case. We can actually track your calls if we wish. We could get a printout of any mobile phone that's used in the authority. But I think it's about trust. You know, we've got people are very responsible at what they do, and I think if we suddenly got a hundreds of pounds bill because somebody's been phoning there, having lengthy conversations with somebody in Wisconsin or something, we might notice. But broadly, it's not an issue. Plus, to be honest, we get such a good deal on mobile phones because we buy so many of them that they cost very, very little, and certainly local calls cost nothing. So it's a very flexible thing, and it does mean if it's a benefit to you that you can separate your home life from your work life, or in the sense of your political life. So there's some advantages from that point of view. But yes, they will be proper phones and internet capable phones as well, in the same way that iPads are. So you could still make video calls and things on them and so on. But yes, in answer to your question there. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I can just add as well, I suppose it's an unfortunate thing to have to say, but I suppose in the climate we find ourselves in now, it would be no bad thing for our contact to be a mobile rather than a home line from a security standpoint as well.
Yeah, it's a good point, Julian. Thanks very much. Okay, thanks. I've got two of the speakers. I've got Merrick, please, if you'd like to speak. And then
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd, unwaith eto. Pwynt cyntaf, y bil ffôn poced. Mi oedden ni'n cael y ffôn ers dalwm, mynyddoedd yn ôl wan, ac be o'n digwydd, o'n ni'n cael bil am be o'n i wedi ddefnyddio, achos o'ch chi'n mynd i weld o ar y bil fod o'n bersonol neu hefo'r gwaith. A'r ail beth, a diolch i'r swyddog Alan Smith am ei ddatganiad y bore yma, ond roedd gan ni y cynghorwyr glin iadur, dyna be o gynna ni, fynyddoedd yn ôl.
Okay, thanks.
Ond dyna ddigwyddodd, a dyn fel da chi'n gweld wan, mae pawb yn mwynhau y glin lechen. Diolch yn fawr.
Thanks, Meg, for that. Councillor Brian Jones, please.
Hello, yeah, well done to Mr. Smith. He sold the case, I think. Apologies if the answer to this question is in the pack there. I couldn't see it, but will these phones be classed in the eyes of the tax as a benefit in kind? If you get a company phone in a private limited company, you have to declare it as a benefit in kind. Even, yeah, so apologies if the answer's in the pack, I couldn't see it. Have we considered that? Is the mobile phone that you gift to members classed as a benefit in kind?
Chair, Gary may want to answer this one, but I would consider it as being available for your professional use only. That's the theory of it, and so I wouldn't see there's any tax advantage to having a DCC mobile to conduct your council business. Gary may correct me.
I'd never correct Alan, but no, I agree with him. If it's purely for the purpose of conducting your council business, then it's not a benefit. It would only be a benefit if you were using for other purposes, and as we said, it's not going to be for those other purposes.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, there's no other speakers, so we need a proposer and a seconder, please, before we go to the recommendations.
Chair, do you want me to take the recommendations then?
Yes, please, if you could.
Okay, so 3.1, the council agrees in accordance with the recommendation of Democratic Services Committee, the method by which to hold different categories of meeting on the basis of the proposal set out in the report presented to the members' new ways of working task and finish group and attached to this report as Appendix 1. 3.2, the council agrees in accordance with the recommendation of Democratic Services Committee that the ICT equipment to be provided to members in the new council should be as set out in section 2 of the report presented to the members' new ways of working group and attached to this report as appendix 1. And finally, 3.3, the council adopts, in accordance with the recommendation of Democratic Services Committee, a protocol in respect of the conduct of hybrid meetings in substantially the same terms as those set out in appendix 2 to this report. I'd move those on block,
Move.
Chair.
Seconded.
Got a proposal and a second. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Gwyneth. Everybody in favour?
Yeah.
Anybody against? Okay, thank you very much. That's moved and carried forward. Thank you very much. So we'll now go on to.
Can I just come in, Mr. Chair, please? Sorry, I have sent a little message in the chat. I've got a meeting at. I've got to leave at 1:45 for another meeting, and I was wondering if my notice of motion could be brought forward.
Okay, thanks, Gwyneth. Normally we take these motions as they come in. That's a normal protocol, but in these circumstances, I think it would be appropriate if you swap these around and you have yours first, if that's okay. So if everybody's happy with that in the chamber, we'll do that. Thank you.
I think, Chair, we're all getting very tired. I hope it'll be prompt.
Well, that's entirely up to you, councillors, because you have half an hour to debate, and the clock is ticking. So once we start, it's up to you to deal with it as quickly as you can. I think we're all getting tired. So right, we'll go to agenda item 11, which is the notice of motion put forward by Gwyneth. Councillor, please.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chair, for accommodating me. I attended the Democratic Services meeting on the 5th of November, and the leader had put forward, I think it was in his name, a paper on diversity in the council. And it was a very, very good paper. And because of time, I'll just keep it short, and I'll quote from Appendix 3, Diverse Council Declaration. This council commits to being a diverse council, and we agreed to provide a clear public commitment to improving diversity in democracy. Secondly, demonstrate an open and welcoming culture to all, promoting the highest standards of behaviour and conduct. And thirdly, set out a local diverse council action plan ahead of the 2022 local elections. And it was coming from that meeting, I thought, by appointing a diversity champion, we would be demonstrating our commitment to diversity. And the governments are very, very keen, and rightly so, on diversity through public bodies especially. So I would see the champion playing two roles: internally or externally, encouraging people from minority backgrounds to stand in elections and to liaise with a champion for disability and young people, and internally ensure that all members on the council, all members, irrespective of their background, are treated with respect, and to support this. The diverse council, there would be gender equality, there'd be younger people, there'd be people from the BAME backgrounds, and people with disabilities. At the moment, we're not a very diverse council. So that is my reason for putting forward this motion. I know that it was agreed that there wouldn't be any more standalone champions, and I know that we've just included the young people's champion today, but I see this champion liaising with the champions for disability, for younger people, for gender, etc. Diolch.
Okay, thank. You want to speak, leader?
Ie, diolch Cadeirydd. Ie, i ymateb I hwnna gen Gwyneth. Diolch Gwyneth am roid y motion yma ymlaen. Cytuno efo'r argymhellion I edrych ar pencampwr cydraddoldeb o ran cysondeb, ond hefyd rhan pwysigrwydd. Da ni eisiau codi safon o sut da ni'n edrych ar y pwnc yma fel cyngor, ond hefyd mae yna disgwyliadau Llywodraeth Cymru. So dwi'n awgrymu bod ni'n rhoi hwn ymlaen i'r Pwyllgor Democrataidd I edrych arno fo mewn mwy o manylder a dod yn ôl I cyngor llawn cyn gyntaf a sy'n bosib I ni cael pencampwr yn y swydd yma neu'r maes yma. Diolch Cadeirydd.
Okay, thank you, leader. We've had that as put as a proposal. Do we have a seconder? Take that forward.
I'll second.
Okay,
Glenn.
thank you very much for that.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Just before we go on, I noticed that Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones has got her hand up. So do you want to?
Point of order, Chair.
Go ahead, Graham.
I was going to propose the question be put. We've only got half an hour for this section. Deal.
Yep, yeah, we can do that. Yep.
Sorry, yeah, you had a proposal that the question be put. Somebody second Graham's proposal.
Proposal, yeah.
A second.
I'll second Graham's, yeah. Sorry, Gwyneth.
Then I think you just need to check with Councillor Kensal that she's happy with the leader's response,
Yeah.
and then we'll submit it back to the Democratic Services Committee and bring a report back.
Yes, I'm extremely happy. I did notify the leader when I presented this motion, and I'm very, very pleased that he is supportive of it, and I thank him.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for pointing that out to me. I'd actually thought that discussion had taken place, so that's why I missed the boat a little bit. So we've had a put forward. Everybody in support of that? No, nobody against. Okay, that's brilliant. That's been moved. Okay, thank you very much. We can go on to agenda number 9. Which is a motion put forward by Councillor Joan Butterfield on behalf of the Labour Group. I believe that Councillor Peter Prendergast is going to present this one. So if you can put that forward, Peter, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is a motion on behalf of Councillor Joan Butterfield that the Council support a call for the UK Government to continue with the £20 per week enhancement to universal credit in order to support the vulnerable at a time of rising household costs and economic uncertainty. That this council writes to our local members of Parliament to invite their support in this motion. To put it into perspective, why I've put this forward on behalf of Joan is currently the government has spent 100 million on HS2, 220 billion on Brexit, 33 billion on the bridge over to Ireland. So if they can find money for that, I'm sure they can find the money for this £20 a week. And we also need to remember the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Is that a hand up for you, Councillor Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones?
No, I've lowered it. It was on the last issue. Thank you.
There's a hand up I can see somewhere.
Chair, did you want me to respond as the relevant lead member?
Sorry. Can we have a second of that?
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay.
Hello, can I just come in quickly?
Chair, wouldn't we normally have the lead member to respond?
Yeah, we need the lead member to respond first. Julian, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Peter, for bringing this before on behalf of Joan and your group. I'm sure you'll appreciate that the setting of levels for universal credit are obviously not within our remit, indeed the remit of Welsh Government. They are a matter for the Treasury. However, a few points. As expected, we've done quite a lot of work in terms of our responses on welfare reform generally, and universal credit, which have gone to scrutiny on a number of occasions. And the pandemic indeed did result, as would be expected, in an increase to take up for universal credit within Denbighshire, although the numbers have started to drop off from their peak at the moment. In the first response to the pandemic, the UK government introduced a number of what were always intended to be short-term and temporary measures to support both businesses and individuals, which included the furlough scheme and the increase to universal credit you refer to in your motion. And I suppose, as with everybody, nobody probably expected this scenario to carry on for as long as it actually did. I should actually also point out that the uplift only applied to those residents who were in receipt of universal credit, not those who were in receipt of legacy benefits. So they obviously it only applies to a certain percentage of claimants within Denbighshire, not across the board. There have been a number of mitigations, both from UK government and from Welsh government, which have been introduced in terms of a reduction in the universal credit taper rate and an increase to the universal credit work allowance. And in addition, as I say, Welsh government have put in a number of measures in terms of a discretionary assistance fund, discretionary housing fund, free school meals during holiday periods, and various other issues. Just in terms of the actual wording of the motion itself, as both furlough and the uplift to universal credit ceased around about 2 months ago, it wouldn't actually, this is my take, there obviously would not be a practical purpose in calling for it to be continued when it doesn't actually exist at present. Clearly, it's a matter for members as to how they want to address that, but it is something, as I say, it's outside of our remit to control, and it is something that ceased over 2 months ago. So I think that's probably all I needed to say as a response, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Councillor Swingler and then Councillor Brian Jones, please.
Thank you again. Yeah, 100% support this motion. It is very important that we are seen as a powerful voice to be supporting the most vulnerable in our society at this time. I would like to make one small amendment, if it would be okay with the proposer, that this council writes to our local members of parliament and our members of the Senedd to invite support. I know it's a Westminster matter, but our own government and our own parliament has a role to play here as well. And the more powerful voices, the more voices, the more powerful the message. Thank you.
I'm quite happy, Chair, for that amendment to be added onto the motion.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yeah, do we need somebody just to second that?
I'll second that, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, Councillor Brian Jones, please.
My hand's not raised, Chair, or I can't see it if it is.
All right. Sorry about that. Looked as though your name came up. Councillor Barry Mellor.
Yeah, I'm definitely behind this. Earlier on, we were talking about the homeless and about trying to stop homeless from occurring. And this will go a long way to help that with people with the rents, that at the moment they can't pay the rents. We've got over 150 homeless people in the rural area put up in bed and breakfast It's ridiculous when we've got families using one toilet, one washing facility. And it's about time we did something about it. And I'm all for it. And I'm happy with Glenn's amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mary Lloyd Davis, please.
Cadeirydd, dwi'n meddwl bod y cynghorydd Julian Thompson Hill wedi deud peth pwysig y fama, sef bod yr ychwanegau wedi gorffen ers 2 fis. Felly, oes ddim angen i'r cynigydd gywiro neu newid, os ni ddeud, y geiriad i ddeud ail gyflwyno ychwanegiad o 20 punt, ac nid parhau gyda.
Yeah, it's a matter for the mover of the motion whether or not they wish to have the motion amended, or if other members want to move an amendment to it. So if we have if Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis is moving that amendment and it's seconded, then that would be the, we'd need to vote on that to understand that that was the substantive motion. If the amendment passed, then we would vote on that again. If the amendment failed, then we'd go back to the substantive motion.
Diolch yn fawr, Gary. Na i gynnigo, os oes neilydd.
I would second that because it does make sense.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just for clarity then, my understanding of what's been spoken about thus far is that the motion would then be amended to say that the council support a call for the UK government to reinstate the £20 per week.
Reinstate the £20 a week.
And that this council writes to our local members of parliament and members of the Senedd to invite support. That's if you're now ready for the question to be put, Chair, then that would mean that you would need to just get the assent of the meeting that that amendment would be the substantive motion.
Are you happy with that? That the amendments are now the substantive motion? Yep. Anybody against? Sorry, can I ask you, anybody against? No, sorry, I just saw a hand up, but it was obviously a late hand. So.
That amendment's carried then, Chair, so it's a question now whether there's any further debate or whether you want to move to the question.
Okay. What I propose is that we go straight to the vote and put it to, is there anybody against this this particular motion going forward? Okay, so I assume that everybody is in favour of. Yep. Yeah, we've got. Yeah, and any abstentions, of course. Yep. Okay. Yeah, so that's carried. So thanks very much for that. Okay, that's good. So the last item is the agenda item 10, notice of motion, which is put forward by Councillor Paul Pennington on behalf of Plaid Group. So you've got a quarter of an hour to put this forward now. So if you could crack on with that, please, that would be great.
Chair, I'm not sure if it's possible, but can I withdraw this motion today and bring it back to the next First Council? Because I don't think just under 15 minutes will do it justice.
Yeah, under the standing orders, a member can withdraw a motion before it's put. In terms of whether it comes back to another meeting, I think it's not a question of deferring. If it's withdrawn, it's withdrawn. You can always put another motion in time for the next meeting. What I would remind members is that the Constitution is quite clear that we allow 30 minutes aggregate in terms of notices of motion, and it's at the discretion of the chair as to whether that changes. So if Councillor Pennington wants to withdraw the motion, that's fine, and he can resubmit it at a date of his choosing, or seek whether he'd like to get on an agenda somewhere else.
Can I contribute to that then? I'd rather it was a more substantial agenda item, actually. It's quite a complex issue which will need a lengthy debate, really. The mutual investment fund is quite complex, and that's the one thing that people are questioning is the costings of it. So if it's possible to get it on as a proper agenda item on full council, I'd rather that than a motion, if that's possible.
I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to go straight to full council as a substantive. There is a process for these things. If you wish to submit a further motion, then you can.
Yeah.
If you wanted it to go on to a substantive item agenda, then it would need to go to the appropriate body that would be able to process that. In other words, that Modernising Education Board scrutiny and then a report back following consideration there.
Okay, in that case,
can I just say,
Yeah.
just generally, I don't think a notice of motion is an appropriate vehicle to seek to determine a question involving potentially a 7-figure sum. That's a matter that should go through a proper process, and if there was going to be a substantive item in respect of that process, then it needs to go through the proper process for consideration. It's not just a single issue item to be brought to a council under a notice of motion.
I was about to say the same as you, Gary, but not quite as succinctly, really. In that case, can I withdraw the motion for today, and I'll take advice from you on what's the best way forward after the meeting.
That's fine, Chair. Certainly.
Okay, Paul, very much. We're now on to agenda item 12, which is the programme.
Yes, members will see the forward work programme in front of them for the 25th of January. There's the budget final proposals. Then on the 22nd of February, there are a number of items. And the meeting on the 5th of April, we'll probably be consulting with members as to whether that should go ahead. We'll then be in the pre-election period, and it's probably not appropriate for us to be making decisions at that point. But we'll keep members informed. And I think probably the other thing to remind members of is that there is a budget workshop coming up on, I think it's the 17th.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Well, that's the end of the meeting.
Chair, sorry to drag the meeting on for another 10 seconds, but on January, I think Steve is still here. We normally also have to bring the council reduction scheme paper for ratification by the end of January.
That's correct. It needs to be decided for the 31st of January. So it'll come then.
Okay, thank you very much, members. It's what is it, 1:50. So the meeting's come to an end. Can I just thank everybody for today's marathon performance? It's really been good and good debates, and thank you very much. And can I wish everybody a very happy Christmas and a healthy, prosperous New Year as well. So,
Thanks, Chair. All the best.
Thank you, Chair. Merry Christmas, everybody.